Chapter 290. Ancient Confucian Sect. Zhu Yi's eyes flickered as he looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. There was an ancient Confucian who started studying at the age of 3. He had never come into contact with any Taoist techniques, nor did he have any dermic powers. He only focused on studying. This old man lived for 100 years, which is considered a long life for mortals. When he was 103 years old, he was studying during a thunderstorm. Suddenly, he had an epiphany. 100 years of wisdom and talent fused into one furnace. He broke through 12 floors in a row and opened up his sea of qi. Following that, he built his beer platform and condensed a pill cauldron. At this point, Lin Feng was in awe. When he first saw this anecdote from the system, he found it unbelievable. The great Confucian formed a pill cauldron in the morning and formed a golden elixir in a short period of time. In the morning, he saw longevity. In the afternoon, he knew the heavens. And in the evening, he was perfect. Late at night, before the thunderstorm ended, the old man triggered the lightning tribulation and passed through it safely, forming a yuanying. Later, the great Confucian continued to cultivate, merging his knowledge with the great Tao of heaven and earth, creating a brand new Taoist technique. With this, he finally achieved the primordial soul great Tao and became free. The orthodoxy he left behind was the ancient Confucian sect, an eternal legend in the cultivation world of the divine land. However, as far as Lin Feng knew, the ancient Confucian sect had been annihilated a long time ago. The reason was simple. It was very difficult to accumulate the scholarly aura to achieve the Tao. To be able to use this method to enter the Tao, one had to be a world-shaking scholar. Even ordinary scholars who led the literary world for a while could not do it, let alone geniuses or child prodigies. Only a great writer whose name would be immortalized in history would be able to reach such a level. To put it bluntly, this was also a kind of cultivation method. Although it was said to be a day of enlightenment, the previous decades of hard work were actually preparation for building a foundation. Moreover, it was a method that was rather difficult to cultivate. Most people who cultivated this method would study for their entire lives, but in the end, they would only be ordinary scholars. At this time, Lin Feng looked towards Jiao Junshun, thinking, in that case, no matter if it's from the perspective of a cultivator or from the perspective of a scholar, this kid is a genius. At this time, Jiao Junshun's actual age was only in his 30s. Reaching the late stage of gold core at such an age was extremely rare in the history of the human cultivation world in the entire vast land of the Divine Land. In the current Qin dynasty, only Shi Tianyi, the dual pupils who dug out Xiao Budian's supreme spiritual platform, was faster than him. Dao was Qing, Jiao Tianyi, Xiao Tianyi, Yu, Xiong, and said Xiong of Tianyi, Shi Tian, Dao Qing Xiu, and Tian who was instead of Tian. Qin, Tian Xiao Run, Confucoff of the Tian Dao. If you don't follow the path of the Tian Dao, then you can't learn. Learning is bad. Is this your reasoning? Zhu Yi moved his fingers and said calmly, you are the minister of the imperial court of the Qin dynasty, while I am just a commoner. I want to exchange knowledge with you. Even if you agree, I'm afraid you won't be happy in your heart. If your heart is unhappy and your mind is not calm, then there are only two results in learning. Either it will accumulate in your chest, and you won't have any literary thoughts, and the article you write will be useless. Or, when you vent this anger, the article you write will be full of energy and swallow the mountains and rivers. Jiao Junshun looked at Zhu Yi with surprise and nodded. To be able to say this, I have to look at you in a different light. You do have some knowledge. Zhu Yi laughed softly. If your talent is stimulated by me, then I will only be happy. I'm just afraid that your chest will be stuffed with grass, and you won't have any literary thoughts. But it doesn't matter. I will return to Tianjing City this year to participate in the imperial examinations of the Great Zhou dynasty. After I finish, we can have a good exchange of knowledge. At that time, we can see whose knowledge is better. Jiao Junshun looked at Zhu Yi and said with a smile, oh, that's very good. Zhu Yi looked at him and then said, knowledge can be compared in the future. At this spell conference, let's first compete with paths, skills, and magical abilities. It doesn't matter if we can't draw lots together. If you're willing, we can have a private exchange. Zhu Yi's tone was calm. There's a saying that you and I, scholars, share. The Confucian sage once said, when 3 people walk together, there will always be a teacher. Back in the day, the Confucian sage once asked a child at his old age, for us scholars, the more we know, the more we don't know. It's worse for a scholar to develop an overweening temperament than a lone man. Zhao Junshun stared at Zhu Yi for a long time. After a while, a smile appeared on his face. Now, I suddenly hope that I can be in the same group as you, Brother Zhu. Zhu Yi smiled when he heard this, but did not say anything else. After watching Zhao Junxin and Shi Xingyun leave, Lin Feng turned to look at Zhu Yi and said with a smile, your exchange of words with this person has made your state of mind more clear. Now, you are on the verge of breakthrough. You are only a thin layer away from the middle stage of the golden elixir, the state of knowing the heavenly connection. Zhu Yi nodded. Master, you are wise. I can indeed feel that I have reached a bottleneck. He looked at Zhao Junxin's back and said slowly, if I can defeat this person, I will be able to break through the barrier of that layer immediately. Zhao Junxin's visit was considered a small interlude. At first, the others thought that he would fight Zhu Yi in real life. However, when they saw that he had left so quickly, they lost interest. Everyone's attention returned to the drawing of lots. This time, they were going to draw lots for the top 4 in the foundational stage. Wang Lin, Yu Hongyan, Shi Shaoqian, and Dao Yuding could be said to be the best among their peers at their age and realm. Their abilities had been completely revealed in their previous matches. Everyone was concerned about what kind of combination the 4 of them would use in the duel. In particular, Wang Lin and Yu Hongyan were fellow disciples of the same sect. After taking 3 of the top 8 spots, the celestial sect of 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 the Selmos people were actually hoping that Wang Lin and Yu Hongyan would be in the same group. Xianmen Tianzong was a monster. It was best to let them fight among themselves. Lin Feng also stared at the copper bottle in front of Dao Master Changle. If there was another internal fight, he would really curse. Tiny Tot and the others were also a little nervous. They were still looking forward to the finals between Wang Lin and Yu Hongyan, so that they could help their sect secure the first place in advance. In addition to Xianmen Tianzong's own people, there was another person in the audience who was sincerely praying that Wang Lin and Yu Hongyan would not be in the same group. Zhao Junshun looked at Shi Xingyun in surprise. How come I've never heard that you and Xianmen Tianzong are so close before? Shi Xingyun shook his head. I've heard about you for a long time, but today is the first time I've met you. Zhao Junxin asked curiously, but isn't the civil war in Xianmen Tianzong more beneficial for your cousin Shi Shaoqian? Although I didn't watch the previous matches, I heard that the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are really good at fighting. What's more, they're all outstanding. Shi Xingyun smiled bitterly. The only opponent I hope Shaoqian will be matched against is Wang Lin. He's the weakest? Zhao Junxin asked curiously. Unexpectedly, Shi Xingyun's face revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. No, it's only because he's a man. Zhao Junxin was even more puzzled. So what? Shi Xingyun's face revealed an awkward expression. He said with some difficulty, my cousin is good at everything, but when he meets women, young and beautiful women. Zhao Junxin came to a realization. Judging from his usual cold appearance, it turns out that he's a man who has tender feelings for women. Then, he keenly noticed that Shi Xingyun's expression became even more awkward, which made him even more puzzled. What is there to be cold about? That was all taught by others. It's all an act. Great Qin Star Nebula Princess mumbled. In short, all the gods and Buddhas are watching over him. Even if he loses because of this, it's fine. At that moment, the results of the drawing of lots were finally out. In the semifinals, Yu Hongyan would be matched against Shi Shaoqian, while Wang Lin's opponent would be Dao Yuding. Shi Xingyun raised her head and let out a long sigh. It's over. On Lin Feng's side, Tiny Tot suddenly smiled. Fourth senior sister, that guy is looking at you. When Yu Hongyan heard this, she looked up and saw Shi Shaoqian staring at her. His gaze was very strange, and it carried a complicated and incomprehensible meaning. I don't care who he is, I'll still hit him with my fists, Yu Hongyan said indifferently after taking a glance at him. Lin Feng smiled and sent a telepathic message to Yu Hongyan using his transcendence energy. Yu Hongyan was a little surprised after hearing this. He turned to look at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded gently. Yu Hongyan took a deep breath and looked more serious. I'll remember Master's warning. I'll be careful when the time comes. On the other side, the disciples of the Tianqi sect looked at Xianmin Tianzong with unfriendly gazes, especially Fang Zhong, who was glaring at Yang Qing with hatred. When Yang Qing made eye contact with him, she could not help but be shocked. She wanted to turn around instinctively, but Wang Lin, who was next to her, said calmly, "You lost to him. What are you afraid of?" Yang Qing smiled bitterly and looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin looked indifferent. If he still dares to hate you now, it means that you didn't beat him up hard enough. You didn't beat him up enough. This kind of person is like a stray dog. When he meets someone fiercer than him, he'll immediately shrink back. Among the Tianqi sect's disciples in the foundation establishment stage, the one who had a relatively normal expression was Dao Yuding. Her long black hair was draped over her back. Her beautiful face was snow white, and her lips were so pale that they were almost colorless. Her expression remained cold. Even when she looked to her opponent, Wang Lin, her expression did not change much. When Wang Lin met her gaze, there was no warmth in his eyes. It was so cold that it sent chills down everyone's spines. The first match was between Yu Hongyan and Shi Shaoqian. After Yu Hongyan bowed to Lin Feng, he walked toward the hidden dragon pot. Shi Shaoqian followed closely behind him and entered the hidden dragon pot. The two of them stood tens of meters away from each other. Shi Xingyun stared nervously at the scene projected by the light at the mouth of the pot. She opened her mouth slightly and muttered to herself, "Please don't, please don't." Lin Feng noticed this and felt a little strange. He then realized that there was something wrong with Shi Zongyue's expression as well. He was staring at Shi Shaoqian with a hint of worry in his eyes. Just as Yu Hongyan was about to make his move, Shi Shaoqian suddenly raised his hand and said, "Wait." Chapter 291. Yu Hongyan was ready to strike, but when Shi Shaoqian suddenly said, "Wait," she frowned and stopped what she was doing. This was a duel that didn't involve life and death. If it was a real life and death battle, Yu Hongyan wouldn't care what he said. If he liked to talk nonsense, then Yu Hongyan would take the opportunity to knock him down. When Shi Shaoqian said, Shi Xingyun, who was extremely nervous outside the kettle, immediately closed her eyes. A look of despair appeared on her pretty face. The leader of the Great Qin dynasty in the spell assembly, the primordial soul expert Shi Zongyue, also looked awkward. His face was filled with anger. What the hell are they doing? Lin Feng frowned. Shi Zongyue and Shi Xingyun look like they have lost their parents. It doesn't look like they're up to something. Yu Hongyan also frowned. What is it? Shi Shaoqian coughed dryly. He looked at Yu Hongyan and said seriously, "Miss Hongyan, I'm officially proposing to you. I hope that I can marry you." His tone was so serious and solemn. He did not sound like a lecher at all. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. After a long time, Lin Feng tilted his stiff neck and looked into the sky. Why do I feel like there are crows flying in the sky? When he turned to look, he saw that everyone was dumbfounded. The primordial soul experts were dumbfounded. The Yuanying patriarch was dumbfounded. The Golden Elixir period experts were petrified. The foundation building stage experts had turned into clay puppets and wood sculptures. Hundreds of people were gathered by the lake of the North Wind Sea. However, it was dead silent. There was no sound at all. Only the sound of the cold wind could be heard. Even the people from the great Qin dynasty were dumbfounded. They stared at Shi Shaoqian in the hidden dragon kettle. Shi Zongyue and Shi Xingyun were the only ones who were still alive. They sighed speechlessly at the same time. Shi Shaoqian's voice still echoed in the air. After leaving the hidden dragon pot, I will go to the celestial sect of wonders to ask for your hand in marriage. However, I feel that I should first let you know my intentions. At the same time, I hope that you can personally agree to my proposal. Only after a while did everyone come back to their senses. Numerous gazes looked towards the Qin dynasty's camp. Although there was no laughter, those gazes caused the Qin dynasty's people to feel so ashamed that they wanted to commit suicide. Zhao Junshan was also stunned for a long time before he laughed out loud. That's quite a character, but he's also a straightforward person. Shi Xingyan looked like she had accepted her fate. She hung her head dejectedly and no longer had the aura and calmness of the princess of the great Qin dynasty. You say that because you don't know. Shi Xingyun looked at Zhao Junshan and said weakly, if the woman standing in front of him was Dao Yuding, he would do the same thing. This time, Zhao Junshan was really tongue-tied. He was completely speechless. Lin Feng also did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Shi Shaoqian, who was still confessing his love for Shi Shaoqian in the hidden dragon pot. At this moment, Lin Feng felt as if 100,000 muddy grassland horses were galloping past him. At first, I thought that you were an arrogant, cold, and even a little cruel. Who would have thought that under your cold exterior, there's a jokester's soul? Lin Feng felt a deep sense of helplessness. You're a jokester. Even if you're really harassing me, it's fine. Why do you look so serious and sincere? What are you trying to do? Don't you care about the occasion? The atmosphere of a spell assembly had been completely ruined. Shi Zongyue let out a dry cough and looked at Lin Feng. He then slowly said, this grandson of mine is a little simple and unsophisticated. He follows the rules of nature that does not care about etiquette. If he has offended you, please forgive him, Sect Leader Lin. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth twitched. He humphed and said, not a problem, not a problem. A hint of helplessness and anger flashed across Shi Zongyue's eyes. The old man swore that if Shi Shaoqian was not his own grandson, if Shi Shaoqian's talent was not so top-notch, he would definitely slap this disgraceful fool to death with his own hands. If either of these two conditions were not met, he would definitely slap Shi Shaoqian to death. Although this old man's grandson is a little rash, his heart is sincere. Shi Ziyue straightened his expression and said in a serious tone, I'm here to officially propose marriage to Sect Leader Lin on behalf of Shaoqian. I hope Sect Leader Lin will consider it seriously. Lin Feng looked at Shi Zongyue speechlessly. Did this old man think that he did not hear what Shi Xingyan had just said? That silly grandson of yours, if it was Dao Yuding in front of him right now, he would also put on the same silly scene. Okay? Lin Feng had enough reason to believe that after Shi Shaoqian had confessed to Yu Hongyan, he would definitely find another opportunity to fool around in front of Dao Yuding. At this moment, Lin Feng could also tell that Shi Shaoqian was not the kind of person who would flirt with beautiful women as soon as he saw them. Instead, he had a serious lack of knowledge about the relationships between men and women, as well as moral standards. Liking beautiful women was a common hobby of all heterosexual young men. However, in this aspect, Shi Shaoqian was, exceptionally silly. However, when Lin Feng looked at Shi Zongyue, he realized that Shi Zongyue's gaze was extremely serious. Clearly, he was really asking Lin Feng to consider this matter. He was sincerely asking for Shi Shaoqian's hand in marriage to Yu Hongyan. Lin Feng's pupils immediately contracted. Shi Zongyue's intention was very clear. He wanted a marriage alliance. A marriage alliance between the great Qin dynasty and Xianmen Tianzong. Marriage did not only exist between countries in the secular world or between clans. It also existed in the world of cultivators. There were marriages between sects, between cultivation families, and between cultivation families and sections. In the Great Qin Empire, there were naturally many marriages. Although Shi Shaoqian's current actions were quite silly, if he was able to successfully marry Yu Hongyan in the end, what happened today might become a good story. Of course, that was secondary. To Shi Zongyue, establishing a close relationship with Xianmin Tianzong would be very beneficial to the Great Qin dynasty and his faction. Especially now that the Great Zhou dynasty was becoming more powerful, the pressure on them was increasing. The reason was actually very simple. Lin Feng could understand it in the blink of an eye, but this did not mean he would agree. This will depend on Hong Yin herself. If she falls in love with your grandson, I will be happy to see it happen. But if she has no fate with your grandson, I will not force her. Lin Feng's tone was calm, but the meaning was clear and decisive. Shi Zongyue frowned slightly. He wanted to say something more, but the situation in the hidden dragon pot suddenly changed. Facing Shi Shaoqian, who was confessing to her, Yu Hongyan's expression became colder and colder. Her sword-like red eyebrows gradually straightened. She suddenly roared, and all the mana in her body surged. The black flame halberd swung towards Shi Shaoqian's waist with the momentum of 1,000 soldiers. Ugh! Shi Shaoqian's words were instantly stuck in his throat. Caught off guard, although his mana automatically protected his body, he was still at a great disadvantage. He was swept away by Yu Hongyan's halberd. Unexpectedly, after that move, Yu Hongyan did not follow up with another attack. Instead, she retracted her halberd and stood still, a confused expression on her face. What? Wasn't all that nonsense just now a tactic to confuse and distract me? Yu Hongyan's expression was filled with confusion and disbelief. The originally restless crowd once again fell into a deathly silence. Everyone was petrified. As the cold wind blew, the sound of rocks falling to the ground could be heard. Even though Shi Zongyue was used to seeing storms, he did not know what to say. He could only stare blankly at the hidden dragon pot. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth twitched. He turned to look at Shi Zongyue and laughed dryly. About that, this disciple of mine is quite simple. She follows the natural law and does not adhere to the customs. If she has offended you, please forgive her, Prince Anliang. Shi Zongyue looked up to the sky and laughed dryly. Of course. Sect leader Lin is too polite. In the Great Qin dynasty's camp, Jiao Junshin and Shi Xingyan looked at each other speechlessly. After a long while, Jiao Junshin laughed. One of them is unreliable, while the other is unenlightened. You don't have to worry about it anymore. However, Jiao Junshin did not know that it was not that Yu Hongyan was unenlightened, but that she could only have room for one person in her heart. Shi Xingyun smiled bitterly. I'm even more worried now. Seeing Jiao Junshan looking at her curiously, Shi Xingyun sighed. It seems that if I had to choose between the two of them, I'd rather Shaoqian face Dao Yuding now. At most, that cold lady would directly reject Shaoqian. However, I'm afraid that Shaoqian will misunderstand and do something even more embarrassing when he meets this unromantic Yu Hongyan. In the hidden dragon pot, Yu Hongyan looked at Shi Shaoqian with dissatisfaction. Since it's not a strategy, why are you talking so much nonsense? Shi Shaoqian got up from the grass and swept the grass off his hair. He looked at Yu Hongyan and nodded seriously. I understand. For a lady with a personality like yours, the person who can win your heart must be someone who can defeat you. In that case, I'll be that person. After saying this, the magic in his body began to surge, ready to fight Yu Hongyan in his best condition. However, in the eyes of the people outside the pot, it only made them want to laugh, but they could not laugh. Jiao Junshin was once again dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Shi Xingyun closed her eyes in despair. As expected, Yu Hongyan did not think too much about it. She only knew that Shi Shaoqian was very dangerous and very powerful. Two light dragons formed by magic, one red and one yellow, circled around Shi Shaoqian's body in the air. One was blazing, while the other was solemn. The two different auras of magic rose and fell one after another. However, The similarity was that both of them were extremely powerful. The Great Qin dynasty's secret technique, the Red Dragon Emperor's Book and the Yellow Dragon Emperor's Book. Sure, Xiaoqian performed 2 different hand seals with both of his hands. He flicked the 5 fingers on his left hand and kept opening and closing them, like a vigorous and lively flame. His right hand, on the other hand, performed a hand seal. He stood still, like a mountain and as heavy as the earth. Sure, Xiaoqian's eyes emitted 2 different colors, red and yellow. His lips moved slightly, and strange syllables came out one after another. It was not the language of humans, but the low murmurs of the dragon tribe. Go! Following Sure Xiaoqian's shout, the 2 light dragons, one red and one yellow, roared and charged toward Yu Hongyan at the same time. Chapter 292. The Great Qin dynasty's 5 emperor true dragon secretaries had created the 5 elemental light dragon transformation technique. After refining the 5 elemental light dragon and cultivating it to the highest level, one would be able to manifest the 5 elemental light dragon emperor true body, which was a powerful force that could tear apart the heavens and earth. Sure, Xiaoqian definitely didn't have such a powerful ability right now, but it was already very rare for him to be able to cultivate 2 kinds of light dragons with his foundation establishment realm cultivation. Under his control, the Scarlet Fire Light Dragon and Yellow Earth Light Dragon roared and attacked Yu Hongyan together. In the previous battles, Sure Xiaoqian only used the Scarlet Fire Light Dragon to sweep his enemies. It wasn't until the last round that he was forced to use the Yellow Earth Light Dragon. In the end, he used both dragons and immediately won. Now, facing Yu Hongyan, he used both dragons right from the start. This was also because of Yu Hongyan's powerful battle strength, which gave him a lot of pressure. Maybe in some things, Sure Xiaoqian was indeed a little silly, but in terms of cultivation and fighting, he was a rare genius. However, his opponent, Yu Hongyan, was also a genius among geniuses, a monster among monsters. Facing Sure Xiaoqian's Scarlet Fire Light Dragon and Yellow Earth Light Dragon, Yu Hongyan wasn't afraid at all. He waved the black flame halberd, and violent magic power instantly exploded. Even the 2 light dragons couldn't get close and were sealed outside. Sure, Xiaoqian was slightly shocked. So strong. She hasn't even used the seamless astral aura. What's so special about Xianmin Tianzong's Dao technique to be so strong? However, Sure Xiaoqian didn't panic. He suddenly put his palms together. 1 red and 1 yellow light dragon intersected. The Yellow Earth Light Dragon gradually dimmed, but the Scarlet Fire Light Dragon became stronger. In the end, this light dragon's flesh, acupoints, bones, and scales actually started to condense. It seemed real, and in a short period of time, it looked like it was going to become real. An extremely hot aura spread out, and the light dragon let out a long roar, bringing with it a faint dragon aura. This was the true dragon aura of a real dragon, and not an imitation of magic power. Outside the pot, Lin Feng and the others nodded slowly when they saw this. Dao Master Blue Thunder sighed. The 5 elements support each other, and the Middle Earth produces the Southern Fire. Although there are only 2 kinds of spiritual power, it can evolve to a certain extent. The disciples of the Purple Cloud Path did not lose unjustly. They had already lost before they could even force Sure Xiaoqian to use this move. If Sure Xiaoqian had used his full strength, he would have lost even more miserably. Northern militant Zhuoxian Prince looked at Sure Xiaoqian and also muttered to himself. This powerful neighbor to the south of the northern militant was still full of talented people. Sun Luminary's sword Lord sighed as well. The sword companions of Li Bingqing and Zhou Yuhua who were defeated by Yu Hongyan were in fact even more outstanding than the sword companions who were defeated by Dao Yuding. But at this moment, even if Li Bingqing and Zhou Yuhua were to face Sure Xiaoqian's attack, they wouldn't be confident that they could withstand it. Sure Xiaoqian and Yu Hongyan were people who truly had the ability to defeat and even kill ordinary early golden elixir cultivators with their foundation establishment stage cultivation. Their actual combat ability surpassed the gap between realms. They were all geniuses among geniuses, monsters among monsters. For ordinary sex, any one of them would be a joyous occasion to congratulate their ancestors. Thinking of this, Sun Luminary Sword Lord couldn't help but glance at Lin Feng. Such an outstanding Yuhanyan was not even the most outstanding disciple under Lin Feng. Compared to the title of Taishu Temple's gathering place of geniuses, Xianmen Tianzong was simply full of monsters. In a hidden dragon pot, facing the scarlet fire light dragon that seemed to have come to life, Yu Hongyan's expression was calm. He pointed the black flame halberd at Shi Shaoqian, and the storm of flames kept rotating at the tip of the spear. All the power was concentrated at one point, causing the tip of the spear to produce the power of space collapse. That point was like a black hole that could devour everything. Void destroying divine spear. Without hesitation, Yu Hongyan used her ultimate killing move. Facing Shi Shaoqian's double dragon fusion attack, her choice was the same as before, which was to attack. You're strong, I'm stronger than you. Ignoring the scarlet fire light dragon that was attacking him, Yu Hongyan focused on controlling the void, destroying divine spear, and attacked Shi Shaoqian. Shi Shaoqian also stared calmly at Yu Hongyan's void, destroying divine spear. He did not panic, manipulating his scarlet firelight dragon to avoid Yu Hongyan's black, hole-like spear tip, avoiding a head-on clash with the void destroying divine spear. Thus, the two sides were in a confrontation. Yu Hongyan's halberd attacked Shi Shaoqian, while Shi Shaoqian's scarlet firelight dragon avoided Yu Hongyan's spear tip and rushed towards the red-haired girl. The battle between the two was about to fall into a situation where both sides would be injured. A sly smile suddenly flashed across Shi Shaoqian's mouth. At the moment when Yu Hongyan's void, destroying divine spear, was about to stab him, his body suddenly changed and became illusory, as if the space around him had become distorted. Shi Shaoqian's body suddenly became illusory, as if he was in the boundless fantasy world, no longer existing in this space. It seemed that Yu Hongyan's void, destroying divine spear, was about to hit nothing. Boundless fantasy world, Dao Master Lan Ting and Chao Wei blurted out at the same time. The remaining primordial soul experts, Solar Glory, Sword Venerable, Flowing Light Sword Venerable, Northern Militant Prince Huaxian, and even Azura Dao Master Huaxiao, who had been indifferent to everything, Dao Master Chong Lu and Dao Master Gambling Zhuguang, who also belonged to the Great Qin dynasty, all looked shocked. Although they had never really come into contact with it, the secret divine ability of the Taishu Temple, Boundless Fantasy World, was too famous, and its characteristics were also obvious, so people could recognize it at a glance. But it was precisely because they recognized it that these Essence Soul experts were shocked. They were not shocked that Shi Shaoqian still had a trump card, but he had not used his real skills in the previous competition. The reason why these Essence Soul experts were so shocked was because they did not expect that Shi Shaoqian had learned the secret divine ability of the Taishu Temple. How did he learn it? And what did it have to do with the Taishu Temple? Was there any inside story or special purpose for the Taishu Temple to teach the divine ability to outsiders? Many thoughts flashed in the minds of every Essence Soul expert present, calculating all kinds of gains and losses and possibilities. At this moment, in the hidden dragon pot, Shi Shaoqian used the boundless fantasy world to avoid Yu Hongyan's void destroying divine spear, and his red firelight dragon hit Yu Hongyan's body. Shi Shaoqian's mouth showed a smile. The cultivators watching outside the pot looked nervous. Has the winner been decided? Has it succeeded? Will Xianmen Tianzong's undefeated streak end here? Miss Hongyan, please believe me. I'm sincere. Shi Shaoqian was speaking when his voice suddenly stopped, as if someone had cut it with a pair of scissors, leaving only an ending sound that echoed in the air. Yu Hongyan, who had been hit by the red firelight dragon, suddenly lit up with a dazzling red light, and an endless storm appeared, forcibly blocking the red firelight dragon's attack. Shi Shaoqian secretly scolded himself for being careless. Previously, she did not use the infinite Gang Qi, So, I should have taken that into account. Now that I've failed on the verge of success, and the boundless fantasy world has been exposed, it will be difficult to find such a good opportunity again. Just as Shi Xiaoqian was thinking about how neither side had gained the upper hand in this round of exchange, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Yu Hongyin's void-destroying divine spear, which should have missed, was now suspended in the air, frozen at the last moment. Just as the void-destroying divine spear was about to hit Shi Xiaoqian activated the boundless fantasy world, turning his body illusory and hiding in the void. But at the same time, Yu Hongyin forcibly stopped the void-destroying divine spear's attack, and even the power that was about to burst out of it stopped. Silently, only the black hole that kept devouring everything like a dark abyss stopped in the air, right in front of Shi Xiaoqian, less than a centimeter away from his chest. Yu Hongyin's expression was calm, and her red lips moved slightly. This spell of yours, when you turn illusory to avoid attacks, you can't move your position. Shi Xiaoqian's face instantly turned pale, because Yu Hongyin had pointed out the biggest weakness of the boundless fantasy world, which was that the user's body turned illusory and hid in the boundless fantasy world. When he turned illusory again and returned to this world, his position would still remain in the original place. Only primordial soul realm powerhouses could flexibly change their position when using this spell. With Shi Xiaoqian's magic power, the boundless fantasy world could only be maintained for a short moment, and the next moment, under his desperate gaze, his body had already turned from illusory to real, and he returned to the boundless universe. At the same time, the void-destroying divine spear that Yu Hongyin had been holding back was finally activated again, and it accurately bombarded Shi Xiaoqian's chest. The hidden dragon pot's restriction reacted automatically and blocked the attack for Shi Xiaoqian, which also announced his defeat. The battle between the two actually only lasted for a very short time, and in almost a few blinks of an eye, the winner was already decided. But the danger, strategy, and dharma spells of the battle had lasted for several rounds, and both Yu Hongyin and Shi Xiaoqian had walked back and forth between life and death. Shi Xiaoqian had wanted to take advantage of Yu Hongyin's carelessness, but who knew that Yu Hongyin would beat him at his own game instead. Shi Zhongyue looked at Lin Feng in shock, and the other primordial soul realm powerhouses also looked at Lin Feng. Everyone had a different expression, and their gazes were equally complicated. Lin Feng felt the doubt in their eyes, and smiled faintly. Not long ago, I personally came into contact with this Dharma spell of the boundless fantasy world. During the battle of the opening ceremony outside the Sand Continent City, Pang Jie had used the boundless fantasy world to avoid Lin Feng's almost fatal move, the smash of the universe. Lin Feng, who had personally fought with this spell, had a deep memory of the characteristics of the Dharma power fluctuations. Although Shi Xiaoqian had not used the boundless fantasy world in the previous battles, because he had cultivated the boundless fantasy world, the way his Dharma power operated inevitably had some flavor of the Taishu Temple. Lin Feng sensed that he had something to do with the Taishu Temple, but he was not sure if he had mastered a certain Dharma spell of the Taishu Temple. Before Yu Hongyin went on stage, Lin Feng reminded her, just in case, and told her the characteristics of a few of the signature Dharma spells of the Taishu Temple, including the boundless fantasy world. However, in all fairness, Lin Feng had actually hit the jackpot this time. He was only guessing, and could not be sure. After all, Shi Xiaoqian had not really revealed anything before. But this did not prevent Lin Feng from taking this opportunity to show off in front of the group of primordial soul realm powerhouses, further strengthening his enigmatic image. Sure enough, the gazes of Shi Zhongyue and the others looking at Lin Feng became a bit more cautious. After Yu Hongyin and Shi Xiaoqian came out of the hidden dragon pod, another battle of the top four was about to begin between Wang Lin and Dao Yuding. Lin Feng looked around, and sure enough, he saw Chao Wei looking at him. Their gazes collided, and immediately sparks flew. Chapter 293. After emerging from the hidden dragon pod, Yu Hongyan returned to Lin Feng and the rest with a frown on her face. Although she had one, she was not in a good mood. What's going on with that Xiaoqian? It's so weird. The red-haired girl was a little annoyed and puzzled. Zhu Yi, Xiao Budian, and the rest were tongue-tied. They wanted to laugh, but they could not. They did not know how to explain it to her. They also felt that it was too funny, and they did not know whether to laugh or cry. Tunton pouted. What else could it be? It's obvious that he wants to mate with you. Cough, 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 cough. The sound of people choking on their saliva could be heard. Xiao Budian smacked her and said, You're in human form now. Can't you speak like a human? Hearing this, Yu Hongyan's red eyebrows straightened. Her almond-shaped eyes were wide open and filled with rage. Zhuge Fengling hurriedly said, It's not that exaggerated. He actually admires you and wants to marry you. It's just that he picked the wrong place. The anger in Yu Hongyan's eyes did not diminish. So he's a lecher. Even so, it's too weird. I didn't even say a word to him. Zhuge Fengling laughed dryly and said, It's love at first sight. It's the legendary love at first sight. Lin Feng stood at the side, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He thought to himself, That guy falls in love with every beauty at first sight. No, to be more precise, it's all beauties that he approves of. He glanced at Dao Yuding from the Tianqi sect and sighed to himself. Unfortunately, it was my disciple who was shot. Shi Xingyan also looked at Dao Yuding and saw that she looked normal. He sighed to himself. If it was her, the situation might not have been so bad. Shi Xingyun felt a headache coming on as he listened to the whispers of the cultivators from the other sects around him. She looked at Shi Xiaoqian helplessly. Although the yellow-robed young man had been defeated, he had regained his cold demeanor after coming out of the hidden dragon pot. However, there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. He walked up to Shi Xingyun and asked in a low voice, Royal sister, what happened? You have to ask yourself. At this moment, Shi Xingyun really wanted to give up all her ladylike manners, grab his collar, and spit on his face. However, when she saw that Shi Xiaoqian was acting as if nothing had happened, he only looked a little confused. He did not think that there was anything wrong with his previous behavior at all. She felt powerless. Then, Shi Xiaoqian looked at Yu Hongyan regretfully, shook his head, and sighed. However, he quickly pulled himself together and looked at Dao Yuding, who was in the Tianqi sect's camp, with bright eyes. His eyes were filled with a complicated expression, just like how he looked at Yu Hongyan previously. When Shi Xingyan saw this, she quickly pulled him behind her. Her heart was filled with helplessness. This cousin of hers was a weirdo who could confess to the first woman in 1 second and repeat the same words to the second woman in the next second. Moreover, he could do this kind of thing in front of the first woman without any scruples. However, he did not think that there was anything wrong with what he did. In his mind, it was a natural thing to do. Shi Xingyan looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. Most of the time, she sincerely hoped that Shi Xiaoqian was a playboy who liked to play around with women. Although it was a bad influence, at least it was normal. However, even if Shi Xiaoqian wanted to confess again, he would have to wait until after the battle between Dao Yuding and Wang Lin. The second round of the semi-finals, Wang Lin versus Dao Yuding, had officially begun. The disciples from both sides walked toward the hidden dragon pot, while the leaders of the two sects started fighting again. Although sparks were flying when he clashed with Chao Wei, Lin Feng remained calm. It should be said that he had to keep a cool head and think about problems. This was because Chao Wei's actions had been too abnormal since they first met. Lin Feng could not sense any of the aura that a primordial soul expert should have from him. He was like a gangster boss who was competitive. However, if Chao Wei was really such a person, Lin Feng would not believe that he could have reached this stage, reached the primordial soul stage, and become the leader of a large sect like the Tianqi sect. In fact, when Lin Feng observed the battle between him and Prince Wuxian of the Northern Militant, he could tell that Chao Wei was not as reckless as he appeared to be. Chao Wei's current actions could be said to be to distract the onlookers and conceal his true intentions. Chao Wei was the first to bet on his disciple. Judging from his previous actions, Lin Feng speculated that Chao Wei was probably trying to get something from him. Fiery ice corporeal? Lin Feng frowned slightly. That shouldn't be the case. Although this thing is wonderful, it can't be said to be very precious. Lin Feng thought for a bit, feeling that the solid of fire ice is very likely just a prelude for Chao Wei to test the waters. Even though this thing is also useful to him, but it's nothing more than killing a rabbit while cutting grass. Taking along with him, it can be considered a freebie type of existence. But Chao Wei's actions also revealed that his true goal was very likely to be related to the fiery ice corporeal. At least, he had found the aura of the fiery ice corporeal at the eternal spring peak in the south of the great Hengduan mountain range. What he really wanted was very likely related to that place. A faint light flashed in Lin Feng's mind, but it disappeared in a flash. There was a layer of fog in front of him, and he could not see clearly. What does this old bird want? A lot of thoughts spun around in his mind, but on the surface Lin Feng always maintained a calm and collected appearance, sending off Wang Lin and Dao Yuding together with his gaze into the hidden dragon pot. On the other side, Chao Wei's very aggressive eyes looked over again. Lin Feng did not avoid his eyes, and the smell of gunpowder between the two became more and more intense. Dao Master Blue Thunder looked at Lin Feng, and then looked at Chao Wei and thought, they're both sect masters, but they're like two fighting cocks. What's wrong with them? Rumor has it that Chao Wei is not such a reckless person. When he talked with Lin Feng before, he was also quite magnanimous. Could it be that there's some inside story for these two to be like this? Or is there an old grudge between them? Sure, Zhong Yue and others looked at Lin Feng and Chao Wei, and their thoughts were also fluctuating. They remained silent and waited to see what would happen. Northern militant prince Zhuoxian looked at Lin Feng and Chao Wei with a strange light in his eyes, and a smile appeared on his rough face. Gambling Dao Master Zhuge Guang coughed lightly and said, "Do you two want to make another bet this time?" Chao Wei raised his eyebrows. "Of course." Lin Feng smiled carelessly. "What about the bet? Are you still thinking about this king's fire-cold ice fruit?" Chao Wei's eyes flashed, and instead of answering, he asked, "What bet do you want to make?" Lin Feng thought for a moment and said, "I have long heard that there is a volcanic crater in the heavenly snowfield lake. In the depths of the lava of the volcano, there is a strange flower called the geocentric fire lotus. If this king's disciple wins, he wants this thing as the prize. How about it?" Chao Wei nodded slightly. "Okay." Lin Feng smiled, saying, "Don't agree so readily. Let me say this first. The geocentric fire lotus I want is not just a flower. The lotus root at the bottom, the branches that support the flower, the lotus itself, the lotus head, and the lotus seeds on the lotus head, this king wants all of them, a complete set, not one less." Chao Wei's eyes narrowed slightly. "You want to dig away my heavenly lake sect's geocentric fire lotus. You can also transplant it from the original flower. As for how to protect your own fire lotus, it will depend on your ability." Lin Feng said lightly, "Between the foundation establishment stage and the golden elixir period, there's a pause in the spell assembly. If you lose, go back and get the fire lotus during this time. This king doesn't have that much free time to go to the heavenly lake with you." The surrounding primordial spirit big shots were originally watching the show, but at this moment, no one could laugh anymore. They looked at Lin Feng and Chao Wei with a serious gaze. It was because Lin Feng's bet was too big. Lin Feng did this on purpose. He wanted to see what Chao Wei wanted from him. Silently, Chao Wei looked at Lin Feng. After a while, he nodded. "Okay, if your disciple wins, the geocentric fire lotus is yours. But if my sect's disciple wins, I'll go to your jade capital mountain and cut off a rock to take away." Chao Wei stared into Lin Feng's eyes, slowly saying, "Do you dare to bet with me?" The expressions of the other primordial spirit experts changed slightly. The thing that the outside world feared the most about the celestial sect of Xianmen, other than Lin Feng himself being unfathomable and unfathomable, was that their mountain gate, Yujing Mountain, was too domineering. It was hidden in the void, but it could still move freely in and out of the divine land. Lin Feng looked at Chao Wei. His pupils contracted slightly, but his expression did not change. I'll bet. The key to Yujing Mountain entering and leaving the void was not the mountain itself, but the Shintian treasure tree at the peak. The concept of Yujing Mountain's power was actually related to time. Lin Feng was currently exploring it. However, Chao Wei's request to cut a rock at Yujing Mountain was somewhat out of Lin Feng's expectations. This was because Yujing Mountain and the frigid fire ice solid had no connection at all. This made Lin Feng's plan to test his true intentions fall through. In the end, Lin Feng still did not know what Chao Wei's true goal was. Could it be that my previous guess was wrong? Lin Feng pondered. His goal has nothing to do with the southern border's Great Hungduan mountain range and the frigid fire ice solid. No, there must be a reason why he came all the way from the Arctic tundra to the Great Hungduan mountain range. It's just that this person is very calm. Even now, he does not dare to reveal himself, afraid that it will alert me. Lin Feng sighed softly. However, I don't believe that he will not reveal himself. In the process of the two big shots confirming the bet, inside the hidden dragon pot, the battle between Wang Lin and Dao Yuding had officially begun, and it immediately reached its climax. Facing Dao Yuding, who was in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm, cultivated the Dharma techniques of the Skypon sect, and was also extremely talented, Wang Lin immediately entered the netherworld death state. All the magic power in his body was transformed into the pitch-black power of nirvanic destruction, filled with the aura of destruction and disaster. Dao Yuding did not hold back either. Pale flames naturally appeared around her body. Although they were flames, they emitted a sharp chill. This was the Skypon sect's signature mystical power, Ice Flame. Controlling the Ice Flame, Dao Yuding did something unexpected. That was, she charged straight at Wang Lin the moment she attacked. Chapter 294. Seeing that Dao Yuding didn't hesitate or probe and charged straight at Wang Lin, the spectators outside the hidden dragon pot all frowned. After the previous competition, Wang Lin had already fully displayed the tyrannical and evil aspects of his netherworld death state magic power. The destructive power of the power of Nirvana was shocking, and the spells of the finger of the Yellow Springs and the road to the Yellow Springs were equally strange and powerful. No matter how one looked at it, Dao Yuding's direct charge gave off a feeling of recklessness. Only Xianmin, Tianzong, and the others, who were originally very relaxed, slightly straightened their attitudes when they saw this scene, and their expressions became a little more serious. Xiao Budian tilted his head slightly. She saw it herself, or did the elders of the sect give her advice? Zhu Yi glanced at the expressions of the cultivators from Tianqi's sect and said softly, "It seems that she saw it herself." Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing, who were at the Foundation establishment stage, didn't say anything, but the way they looked at Dao Yuding clearly became a little more serious. This was because the way Dao Yuding attacked now seemed reckless, but in fact, it was targeting Wang Lin's biggest weakness. Powerful magic power, weak body. Among the 6 great direct disciples under Lin Feng, Xiao Budian's physical strength was the most tyrannical, and he was the most ferocious in close combat. Wang Lin's physical strength was almost the weakest among the 6, and even Yang Qing was a little stronger than him in this aspect. Wang Lin and Yang Qing both didn't cultivate any physical martial arts and only focused on magic power. On one hand, Yang Qing had already established her beer and reached the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, and on the other hand, her lunar true water was actually constantly nourishing her physical body. As for Wang Lin, not only did he not cultivate his physical body, but both the true water of the Yellow Springs and the dermic powers of the Yellow Springs Death Realm had corroded his body to a certain extent. Therefore, strictly speaking, Wang Lin's physical strength was even slightly weaker than the average early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator of the same realm. However, Wang Lin's Dharma techniques were extremely tyrannical. He was always the one suppressing his opponents and beating them up. No cultivator in the same realm as him could take more than a few moves from him. Often, his opponents would fall before he could even exert his strength. Foundation establishment cultivators like Hua Chun, who could break through space with a finger of nirvana, were already considered quite rare. Therefore, there were very few enemies in the same realm as Wang Lin who had the opportunity to close the distance between them and engage in close combat. Obviously, that was what Dao Yuding was planning. What made Xiao Budian and the others frown even more was that this snow-clothed girl was very likely to put her plan into practice. Raging ice flames spread out in all directions, resisting Wang Lin's power of nirvana. In terms of quality and power, Wang Lin's power of nirvana was superior. However, he had not advanced to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage and established his beer, so his derma powers were inferior to Dao Yuding's in terms of purity and quantity. In this situation, Dao Yuding did not attack and concentrated all her ice-flame dermic powers on defense. The power of nirvana could not destroy her in a short time. The distance between the two was only a few dozen meters. With Dao Yuding's speed, she would arrive in an instant. And from the speed of her sudden movement, it could be seen that she also had good attainments in physical martial arts. She could not compare to that group of men in the Northern Militant, but it was enough to fight against Wang Lin. If she really succeeded in getting close, Wang Lin would most likely be beaten until he could not take care of himself. Xiao Budian and the others could see the problem. As the person involved, how could Wang Lin, who was facing Dao Yuding's sharpness, not see it? Almost as soon as Dao Yuding moved, Wang Lin had already guessed her intentions. After all, he was the clearest about his own weaknesses. Wang Lin's usual oppressive fighting style was actually to protect his own weaknesses. Now that Dao Yuding was in front of him, Wang Lin's expression was calm. His hands formed a seal, and the power of the Yellow Springs Death Realm was continuously activated. Instantly, a black and yellow path appeared in the space, extending into the distance. It was the Yellow Springs path. The moment the Yellow Springs path appeared, Dao Yuding landed on it. Countless reincarnation forces attacked her soul. This move was very difficult for Foundation establishment cultivators to defend against. This was because the souls of Foundation establishment and Qi condensation cultivators were not stable enough. Under the attack of the reincarnation forces, it was very easy for them to be immersed in their own memory fragments that kept flashing back and forth. Outside the pot, when Lin Feng saw this scene, he suddenly frowned. He could feel that Dao Yuding was very little affected by the reincarnation forces of Wang Lin's Yellow Springs path. There were two explanations. Either her soul was incomparably strong and condensed, surpassing the level of Foundation establishment cultivators, or she had some secret on her body. With Lin Feng's current cultivation, he could naturally see that the strength of Dao Yuding's soul was still at the level of Foundation establishment cultivators. There was nothing special about it. Then it could only be the second possibility. She had other secrets on her body. Inside the pot, Wang Lin, who was fighting with Dao Yuding, also had a slight change in expression. Unlike Lin Feng, who had to rely on guesses, he could directly obtain first-hand information. He realized that Dao Yuding's memory fragments were extremely few. Wang Lin's lower cultivation level did not allow him to directly read his opponent's memory fragments. However, as the caster, he could at least know how many memory fragments his opponent had produced, how many of them were from this life, and how many were from the previous life. However, right now, in front of Wang Lin, the memory fragments that Dao Yuding's soul had been attacked were far fewer than the others. Hua Chun, who also fell under this move, had at least 7 or 8 times more memory fragments than Dao Yuding. Dao Yuding's memory fragments were few, not because she had little experience, but because her memory was originally incomplete. In particular, the reincarnation memories of Dao Yuding's previous life were even fewer. There were only some scattered fragments. What a strange person, Wang Lin muttered in his heart, but the highest level of alarm sounded in his mind. With few memory fragments, under the impact of the reincarnation power, the confusion caused by the divine soul would quickly be alleviated. The road to the underworld had only a small impact on Dao Yuding. As expected, Dao Yuding's slightly dazed eyes quickly regained clarity. However, there were a few more things in her eyes that could not be explained clearly. However, this did not affect her making the most appropriate judgment at the moment. Facing the countless white bone claws that stretched out from the road to the underworld and wanted to drag her into the black and yellow soil, Dao Yuding chanted a spell in a low voice, and white, icy mist appeared around her body. Tianqi Sect's secret method, Ice Essence Burning Flame. When the white mist came into contact with the bone claws and the black soil, it instantly turned into a boundless fire that burned fiercely. It was going to burn the entire road to the underworld of Wanglin. When the cultivators watching the battle outside the hidden dragon pot saw this, they all held their breaths. The ice essence burning flame could turn the opponent's magic power into its own fuel, continuously increasing the power of its own fire. The stronger the opponent's magic power was, the more powerful the ice essence burning flame would be. The opponent strengthened his magic power to resist the ice essence burning flame, but the result was like adding firewood to the fire, increasing the power of the ice essence burning flame and sending all his magic power to the enemy. At the end of the day, it was really against the rules for a Foundation establishment cultivator to learn this move. However, Wang Lin was not afraid at all. He watched expressionlessly as Dao Yuding used the ice essence burning flame. His reaction was to activate the power of the underworld death realm to the extreme. The thick, ink-like nirvana death chi strengthened the road to the underworld like a wave. Is he an idiot? He knows that doing this will only strengthen the power of junior sister Yuding's ice essence burning flame. Outside the hidden dragon pot, in the Tianqi Sect's camp, Fang Zhong curled his lips in disdain. In the Great Qin Dynasty's camp, Shi Shaoqian looked at Dao Yuding in the light with a strange look in his eyes and muttered something. Shi Xingyan looked at him warily and asked Jiao Junshin, "What do you think?" Jiao Junshin blinked and said, "Xianmin Tianzong is going to win again." Shi Xingyan nodded and said, "If we're talking about Dao Yuding's nemesis, it's probably Wang Lin." Before he finished speaking, the other spectators were shocked to discover that inside the hidden dragon pot, Wang Lin was continuously adding his transcendence energy to the road to the Yellow Springs. But it was actually not to provide fuel for Dao Yuding's ice essence burning flame. On the contrary, the spiritual fire produced by Dao Yuding's burning ice essence technique was gradually suppressed by the road to the underworld. The spiritual fire that could burn the enemy's transcendence energy and turn it into her own firepower, which was always successful, actually lost its effect. The group of primordial spirit big shots who were watching the battle looked calm. Dao Master Lan Lei nodded slightly and said, "It's rare to have a cultivation base in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm to have comprehended the power of nirvana." Northern militant Prince Zhuoxian laughed heartily, glanced at Chao Wei, and said with a smile, "The power of nirvanic extermination is originally capable of annihilating and destroying all things. It's already not bad that your Skypond Sect's frozen radiance incineration art isn't destroyed when encountering it, yet you still want to devour and borrow its power? What a joke." Chao Wei said lightly, "The winner hasn't been decided yet. It's too early to say this." Lin Feng glanced at him and suddenly said, "Since that's the case, I suddenly want to add another wager. Can Sect Master Chao accept it?" Chao Wei's indifferent face flashed with some inexplicable emotions. He looked at Lin Feng and said, "You want to add another bet? What do you want to add?" Lin Feng said, "I heard that the snowfield is rich in the spiritual flower 9, revolving ice orchid. If my disciple wins this round, Sect Leader Chao will give me another 9 revolving ice orchid in addition to the geocentric flaming lotus. How about it?" Chao Wei frowned slightly. The 9 revolving ice orchid was not a particularly precious spiritual flower. Its value was limited, but it was extremely rare and difficult to pick. With his magical power of the primordial spirit stage, picking this flower was as easy as lifting his hand. The key was that it was difficult to find it, and it was really useless to mobilize his disciples to fight for it. Chao Wei stared at Lin Feng for a long time and said lightly, "Okay, But in that case, I will definitely add another bet. If my disciple wins this battle, in addition to the mountain rocks of a Yujing mountain, I will also add a branch of the treasure tree at the top of your Yujing mountain. Lin Feng looked at him and said with a smile, "Deal." With a new round of bets, the battle between the two sect leaders heated up again. And inside the hidden dragon pot, the battle between Wang Lin and Dao Yuding also changed again, becoming more and more intense. Her ice essence burning flame was restrained by Wang Lin's power of quietus. Dao Yuding gave a light shout. The pill cauldron in her body rumbled, and all the mana in her body was mobilized. At this moment, all the magic power that had been released outside suddenly began to gather toward her. Chapter 295. Dao Yuding's expression didn't change as the ice essence burning flame was ineffective. She let out a light shout and suddenly withdrew all the mana that was released outside her body. Whether it was the ice essence burning flame or the white mist, all of them quickly gathered around Dao Yuding. Wang Lin immediately noticed the change in Dao Yuding, and his heart moved slightly. This way of circulating mana, it's so familiar. Outside the hidden dragon pot, Lin Feng's pupils also contracted slightly. Zhu Yi and the other Xianmin Tianzong disciples who were watching the battle all looked at Yang Qing at the same time. Yang Qing muttered to herself, "This way of circulating mana, it's similar to my Lunar Mountain flood curse." Some of the other cultivators who were watching the battle also saw some clues. In addition to the ice essence burning flame, this girl has actually mastered the volcanic roar. The spell that Dao Yuding was using now was another top magical power of the Heavenly Pool sect, the volcanic roar. This spell had the same effect as Yang Qing's mountain flood curse. Both of them instantly gathered all the mana in one's body and then burst it out at once, creating a destructive power that was far beyond ordinary. It was like a volcano erupting and the earth rumbling. It was unstoppable. Unlike the mountain flood curse of the small sect Cloudwater Cave, the volcanic roar spell of the Heavenly Pool sect could be used by itself while also accommodating the characteristics of other spells. The volcanic roar itself was like an erupting volcano, while the other spells of the Heavenly Pool sect, such as the Ice Essence Burning Flame and the Ice Essence Burning Flame, were like the surging lava after the eruption of a volcano and could maintain their own power. It was equivalent to using the volcanic roar as a carrier to release a variety of spells at once. Moreover, because of the potential of the volcanic roar, the power of each release spell was greatly increased, even more than before. In the Heavenly Pool sect, this was a magical power of a higher level than the Ice Essence Burning Flame. This was Dao Yuding's trump card and the source of Chao Wei's confidence to fight with Lin Feng. Outside the hidden dragon pot, the Dao Lord of Gambling, Zhuge Guang, let out a long sigh upon seeing this and looked at Chao Wei. "Sect leader Chao, this disciple of yours has a bright future." Chao Wei nodded slightly at him to express his gratitude. Then he turned his gaze to Lin Feng. "Later, I'll have to trouble you, my master, to be my guide on your Yujing Mountain." As if to annotate his words, Dao Yuding's volcanic roar suddenly burst out. Countless ice flames and white mist violently spread in all directions. Under such a violent flow of mana, Dao Yuding was still able to control it so that the power would not be scattered, and most of the attacks were aimed at Wang Lin. Originally, Dao Yuding was superior to Wang Lin in terms of the total amount of magic power. Now that she had activated the Volcano Cry spell and increased her own power, she immediately used quantity to overwhelm quality and broke through the road to the underworld formed by Wang Lin's power of nirvanic destruction. The tottering and continuously breaking road to the underworld seemed to indicate that Wang Lin was about to lose. The disciples of Tianqi's sect who were watching the battle outside the pot cheered loudly, and the cultivators of other forces also showed excitement on their faces. They might not be on good terms with Tianqi's sect, but at this moment, most of them supported Dao Yuding, not because beauties had special privileges, but because the winner of the last battle was Yu Hongyan. If Wang Lin won this battle, Then the final two places of this year's Foundation Establishment Stage battle would be monopolized by Xianmin Tianzong, and the final battle would become an internal competition between fellow disciples of the same sect. This was something that most people did not want to see. First, it was boring, and second, Xianmin Tianzong's strength made many people feel uneasy. Dao Yuding did not think that she would win, just because she broke through Wang Lin's road to the underworld. She was as calm as ever. She knew very well that her Volcano Cry spell was not without weaknesses. After the spell was cast, the caster's magic power would be almost exhausted, and they would not be able to fight again for a long time. Therefore, the Volcano Cry spell was actually a spell that was used to fight with one's back, and it was either succeed or die. Therefore, Dao Yuding did not relax at all. Instead, she used the last opportunity of the Volcano Cry spell to continue the previously established battle strategy. She got close to Wang Lin and fought in close combat, using the most reliable method to completely win. Although Dao Yuding cultivated both magic and martial arts, her main cultivation was still magic. Her cultivation in physical martial arts was far inferior to that of Yu Hongyan, Zemu Zhilo, and the others, but it was enough to deal with Wang Lin. She firmly grasped the last opportunity of the Volcano Cry spell. First, she used her escape method, and like the cold wind outside the Great Wall, she got close to Wang Lin in an instant. Then, she waved her arm, and the last of her magic power was condensed into an ice blade. She slashed at Wang Lin's chest with an extremely mysterious trajectory. Her blade technique was exquisite, and it was like an antelope hanging its horns, blocking all of Wang Lin's escape routes. Her magic power exploded, and the speed of the blade was as fast as a meteor, not giving Wang Lin any chance to dodge. It was powerful and indestructible, and it was enough to break all of Wang Lin's defenses. This blade, it was a sure kill. Wang Lin's eyes were cold, and his lips were tightly pressed into a line. He stared at Dao Yuding's ice blade. He couldn't dodge this blade, but he never intended to dodge. His courage in the face of life and death was no less than anyone else's. All heaven's underworld finger, silent destruction. Wang Lin completely ignored Dao Yuding's ice blade, and his right finger pointed out. In an instant, a pitch-black space filled with silent death energy enveloped Dao Yuding. Dao Yuding, who had used the power of the Volcano Cry spell on her last blade attack, no longer had any energy left to dodge Wang Lin's final silent destruction finger. Dao Yuding's pretty face was cold, and there was no fear in it. She stared coldly at Wang Lin's eyes. This pair of young geniuses faced the shadow of death at the same time, but neither of them flinched. They stared at each other coldly, and it was as if time and space had frozen. Are they going to perish together? The spectators widened their eyes and stared intently at the battle in the hidden dragon pot, not daring to let their attention wander. They're not going to perish together. A cultivator with a higher cultivation base made a judgment. Before Wang Lin's silent destruction force destroys Dao Yuding's vitality, Dao Yuding's ice blade will cut Wang Lin's throat first. Jiao Junshun resolutely said, if this was a battle of life and death, then the two of them would definitely die together. But right now, they are inside the hidden dragon pot. The magic treasure's restrictions will protect the lives of both of them. But the restrictions are activated first and then later. This way, the winner will be decided. The winner of this battle is Dao Yuding from the Skypool sect. Xianmin Tianzong has lost. Shi Xingyun stared intently at the hidden dragon pot and mumbled, is Xianmin Tianzong finally going to lose? Xianmin Tianzong was going to lose. There was a sudden uproar in the venue. The crowd was excited and did not dare to blink. They stared intently at the hidden dragon pot, waiting for the moment the restrictive spells of the hidden dragon pot were activated to determine the outcome of the battle, to determine the outcome of Xianmin Tianzong's defeat, to confirm that the legend of Xianmin Tianzong's disciples being invincible in fights of magical powers within the same realm was completely broken. At this moment, no one would care. Dao Yuding was in the late stage of the foundational building realm against Wang Lin, who was in the early stage of the foundational building realm. No one would care. If it was a real battle of life and death, the final outcome would be mutual destruction. They would only remember that the legend written by Xianmin Tianzong had finally become history. Everyone watched with rapt attention as Wang Lin used the finger of nirvana with his right hand. At the same time, he also extended his left hand and pointed his index finger. However, he did not point it at Dao Yuding. Instead, he pointed it at the space between his eyebrows. Huh? What was going on? The crowd was stunned. Even the elders of the Yuanying stage and Golden Elixir period were stunned. Wang Lin stared coldly at Dao Yuding's ice blade as it slid across his throat, muttering as if he was sleep-talking. All Heaven Underworld Finger, Rebirth. Ever since Wang Lin comprehended the All Heaven Underworld Finger, he had not been able to truly complete the third finger. At this moment, it finally showed its glory in the hidden dragon pot by the North Wind Sea. Countless black threads of gas suddenly gushed out of Wang Lin's body and gathered on Wang Lin's neck that was cut by Dao Yuding's ice blade. Like a needle and thread, it instantly stitched up Wang Lin's broken flesh and skin. In the next moment, a black light flashed, and Wang Lin's entire body had already recovered, as if he had not been injured by Dao Yuding at all. It was as if Dao Yuding's blade had missed. The Hidden Dragon Pot's restriction did not activate because Wang Lin's rebirth finger was a step faster. The Hidden Dragon Pot judged that Wang Lin would not die because of Dao Yuding's attack, so it did not move at all. Everyone outside the pot was dumbfounded. How is this possible? Are our eyes playing tricks on us? But if our eyes are playing tricks on us, it can't be that all of our eyes are playing tricks on us, right? Could it be that this Wang Lin has an immortal body? Of course, Wang Lin did not have an immortal body. There were many conditions to use the rebirth finger, and Wang Lin could only use it once in a very long time. But it was already extraordinary enough. Silently, the group of S and Soul big shots who were watching the battle looked at Wang Lin. After a long time, Shi Zongyue sighed. Apart from the power of Nirvana intent realm, he even comprehended the power of creation intent realm. Creation and destruction were the two most fundamental and most powerful powers. Not to mention Foundation Establishment cultivators and Golden Elixir period cultivators. Even Yuanying cultivators who could comprehend it would be a great fortune. Essence Soul powerhouses were also still exploring to different degrees. But today, they saw it from a small, early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator. This made the group of Essence Soul big shots feel emotional. Swordsman Flowing Light, who had not spoken much since the beginning of the spell conference, suddenly said, "There's no need to continue the competition. In this spell conference, the strongest Foundation Establishment disciple is undoubtedly Wang Lin." He looked at Lin Feng. "Congratulations, Sect Leader Lin. Swordsman Flowing Light, you're too polite." Lin Feng smiled and looked at Wang Lin in the hidden dragon kettle. There, Wang Lin was silently looking at Dao Yuding, who was enveloped by the power of his rebirth finger. The power of Nirvana had already started to take effect. Dao Yuding, who was at the end of her rope, was powerless to resist. She could only watch as the hidden dragon kettle's restriction was activated and save her life. The girl in snow-white clothes' face was completely drained of blood. She was pale, but she still stared at Wang Lin without backing down. Other rare emotions appeared in her usual cold expression. Admiration, unwillingness, surprise, curiosity. All sorts of emotions flashed past. Finally, they turned into stubbornness as she stared at Wang Lin without backing down. Wang Lin looked at her silently and said something that was rare. "As an opponent, you're not bad." Chapter 296. Hearing Wang Lin's evaluation, Dao Yuding's eyes flashed with anger for a moment. However, when she noticed Wang Lin's calm and solemn expression, she was somewhat speechless. The outcome had been decided. When Dao Yuding faced Wang Lin's finger of Nirvana, she triggered the Hidden Dragon Pot's protective restriction. On the other hand, Wang Lin had used the Finger of Rebirth to successfully resolve Dao Yuding's ice blade attack that was supposed to kill her. The outcome had been decided by a hair's breadth. Wang Lin's move was actually extremely dangerous. For the Finger of Rebirth to be effective in actual combat, the conditions were very harsh. It was like walking on a tightrope. A slight deviation would result in failure. Under Lin Feng's guidance, after Wang Lin comprehended the power of nirvana, he began to try to figure out the concept of the power of creation. Finally, not long ago, he found some clues and finally perfected the third finger of his Yellow Springs finger, the Finger of Rebirth. This Dharma art was supposed to be a supportive Dharma art used to heal the wounded. It was mainly used to save others. Under the effect of the power of creation, it could play a role in healing injuries. In fact, as long as a person still had a breath left and was on the verge of death, Wang Lin's Finger of Rebirth could also pull the other party back from the brink of death. However, that was only the ideal situation in theory. In reality, Wang Lin's own Dharma power cultivation and the actual injuries of the target had to be considered. The principle of the Finger of Rebirth was actually to push Wang Lin's force of nirvana to the extreme and then forcefully reverse the two poles, turning the nirvana death chi into vigorous force of life and extending the vitality of others. Therefore, after using the Finger of Rebirth, Wang Lin's Dharma power would fall to the bottom. He might not even be able to enter the state of the Yellow Springs Death Realm for a long time. Of course, this Dharma art could also be used on Wang Lin himself. Furthermore, there was no waste of Dharma power, so the effect would be even more obvious. However, it was extremely difficult to grasp the timing. If it was too early, it would be a waste. If it was too late, that person would already be dead. His magic power would be destroyed, and he would not be able to use his magic. Everything would be over. The Rebirth Finger had to be activated at the same time the enemy's attack dealt damage. Only then could it achieve the desired effect. This was also the first time Wang Lin had used the Finger of Rebirth in a real battle. Being able to succeed was largely due to luck. That was why he admired Dao Yuding for being able to force him into such a dangerous situation. Previously, when facing Dao Yuding's Ice Blade, Wang Lin had directly used Nirvana Finger to counterattack with attack. In fact, he was betting on whether Dao Yuding would waver in the face of death. He wanted to see who was more fearless of death. Even if they knew that they had the protection of the hidden dragon pot, when they truly faced the shadow of death and felt the grim reaper breathing on the back of their necks, most people would still be shaken and instinctively react in self-defense. However, Dao Yuding forcefully suppressed the urge to protect herself. She did not move or waver and pointed her ice blade at Wang Lin. She wanted to bet with Wang Lin in life and death. In the end, if not for Wang Lin's Finger of Rebirth, he would have really lost to Dao Yuding. To Wang Lin, this was also a battle where he broke through his limits and gained a lot. Outside the hidden dragon pot, Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light made a conclusion right away. He was certain that Wang Lin was the strongest among the Foundation establishment disciples in this Barren Sea assembly. Although the other Essence Soul Realm experts did not say anything, their gazes were all filled with agreement. The words of Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light were heard by the hundreds of cultivators from the various factions. For a moment, everyone had mixed feelings. Even if there were people who were not convinced, it was meaningless. This was because in the fight for the first place later, Wang Lin's opponent would be his own junior sister, Yu Hongyan. Even if Wang Lin lost, the first place would still belong to Xianmen Tianzhou. Lin Feng looked at Chao Wei silently. Chao Wei looked back at him calmly and nodded. With a wave of his sleeve, an illusion of light and shadow suddenly appeared in the sky, and the image of an old man appeared in the illusion. When the old man saw Chao Wei, he bowed and greeted, "Sect Master, what orders do you have?" Chao Wei said expressionlessly, "Transplant the geocentric fire lotus from the volcano in a mountain gate and send it to me by the North Wind Sea. At the same time, search for a 9-revolution ice orchid and send it over together." Hearing this, the old man was shocked, but he did not say anything. After hesitating for a moment, he bowed and said, "As you wish, Sect Master." The light and shadow disappeared. Chao Wei's expression was still cold as he looked at Wang Lin and Dao Yuding, who had come out of the hidden dragon pot. Lin Feng smiled slightly. "Old man, It's fine if I can't force you to reveal your secrets the first time. There will be a second time very soon. The reason why he suddenly raised the wager was actually to test Qiao Wei and see what Qiao Wei had his eyes on. In the end, Qiao Wei had asked for the mysterious heavenly treasure branch. This was the same as when he had asked to cut Mount Yujing's rock. However, this made Lin Feng certain that whether it was Mount Yujing's rock or the mysterious heavenly treasure branch, they were all just a smokescreen. This person's real goal was something else. At this time, Lin Feng had a vague guess in his heart, but he could not verify it. However, he was not anxious at this moment. If Qiao Wei really wanted that thing, he would show his foxtail sooner or later. Wang Lin came out of the hidden dragon pot and walked towards Xianmin Tianzong's camp. The cultivators from the other forces looked at him with extremely complicated gazes. Among the disciples under Lin Feng's tutelage who participated in the Foundation Building Realm competition this time, after winning, the one who had the greatest influence and the most shocking effect was undoubtedly Wang Lin. Because his cultivation level was only in the early stage of the Foundation Building Realm, he hadn't even established his spiritual platform yet. His opponents were all in the late stage of the Foundation Building Realm and Pill Tripod Realm cultivators. Moreover, each and every one of them was a well-known figure in the same realm. They were at the peak of the Foundation Building Realm and were only one step away from core formation. In this kind of situation, the early-stage Foundation Building Wang Lin was actually able to fight his way out of the encirclement. This was the most convincing proof that Xianmin Tianzong's disciples were invincible in fights of magical powers in the same realm. The impact he brought to the crowd was even stronger than that of Yu Hongyan, who was in the late stage of the Foundation Building Realm, and Yang Qing, who was in the middle stage of the Foundation Building Realm. Zhao Junxian looked at Wang Lin with great interest. His gaze eventually drifted to Zhu Yi. Initially, I didn't quite believe that Zhu Yi could go against the Yuaning Realm Great Ancestor with his early-stage golden elixir cultivation level. However, after seeing his junior brother's performance, I have no choice but to believe it. A smile appeared on the scarlet-robed scholar's face. I'm really looking forward to fighting with Xianmin Tianzong's disciples. Just as Shi Xingyan was about to say something, he suddenly realized that Shi Shaoqian, who was behind him, was staring fixedly at Dao Yuding, who had just come out of the hidden dragon pot. Shi Xingyan quickly pulled Shi Shaoqian back before turning to look at Zhao Junxian. He smiled and said, "I wish you all the best, but I don't want to encounter these demons at all. I'd rather fight Tao Yaoyao for another 300 rounds." Zhao Junxian laughed out loud. "I'm afraid that Tao Yaoyao has the exact opposite opinion of you." Wang Lin did not care about the discussions and stares from the crowd. Instead, he frowned slightly as if he was thinking about something. He only came back to his senses when he returned to Lin Feng. He first bowed to Lin Feng, then suddenly said, "Master, I've gained some new understanding of the concepts of the forces of creation and nirvana. I like to go into seclusion to comprehend them. I like to forfeit my last match with fourth junior sister." Although Xiao Budian and the rest were slightly surprised when they heard this, they also had a look of understanding on their faces. They could all understand Wang Lin's mentality of wanting to immediately understand all the principles behind a Dao art when he suddenly had a new understanding. Almost all of them had the same experience. Moreover, if they did not grab hold of the inspiration that flashed through their minds, it would be very difficult to find it again in the future. Only Yu Hongyan's eyes were slightly disappointed. After witnessing the battle between Wang Lin and Dao Yuding, her blood was already boiling. She was looking forward to the battle with Wang Lin. She believed that it would be even more satisfying than the battle with Shi Shaoqian. However, Yu Hongyan also expressed her understanding towards Wang Lin's current state. "Fourth junior sister, after using the finger of rebirth, I can no longer enter the netherworld death state. Even if I stay and fight with you, there's no meaning." Wang Lin looked at Yu Hongyan with an apologetic look on his cold face. He would only show such emotions in front of his fellow disciples. From the bottom of his heart, Wang Lin did not like to fight, but he could understand Yu Hongyan's thoughts, so he also felt slightly regretful. As for the first place, Wang Lin did not care much about it. After all, it belonged to his own Xianmin Tianzong. It did not matter whether he got it or not. It was not that he had no desires and was so selfless, but Wang Lin was a standard pragmatist. He did not care about empty titles at all. Yu Hongyan nodded regretfully, but she still smiled. I wish third senior brother in advance that your closed-door cultivation will be fruitful. Wang Lin nodded with a smile and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled faintly and flicked his finger. A small world formed from purple chi formed and stored Wang Lin inside. The small world was like an independent world. Wang Lin would not be disturbed when he cultivated inside. Lin Feng kept the small world and explained the situation to Shi Zongyue and the others. Zhuge Guang, the Lord of Gambling, frowned slightly. So impatient? Lin Feng nodded and said indifferently, we are all cultivators, so we should have the same experience. Although Shi Zongyue and the other Essence Soul Realm cultivators were a little surprised, they still accepted Lin Feng's explanation. In this way, Yu Hongyan won without a fight and successfully became the champion of the Desolate Sea Assembly's Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator Competition. The cultivators under the various forces were in an uproar and discussed among themselves. After the Celestial Sect of Wonders took over the top 2 places, most of the crowd had adjusted their mentality. They wanted to see another fierce battle within the Celestial Sect of Wonders. Now, they could only helplessly accept this somewhat anticlimactic result. They could not let Shi Shaoqian or Dao Yuding fight with Yu Hongyan, right? No matter how thick-skinned the Great Qin Dynasty and the Heavenly Pool Sect were, they could not say such things. Shi Zongyue tapped the hidden dragon pot, and it suddenly grew from the size of a fist to the size of a small mountain. It landed on the ground. Just like the previous years, the assembly has temporarily come to an end. Shi Zongyue pointed at the hidden dragon pot and said, from now on, everyone can move freely. Those who want to trade can enter the hidden dragon pot to do so. Tomorrow will be the competition of the Golden Elixir Period disciples. He turned to look at Lin Feng and the other Essence Soul Realm cultivators. Now let them move freely. Everyone, please follow me to the entrance of the ancient Desolate Sea Realm. Chapter 297. The competition of the Building Foundation Realm ended with Yu Hongyan winning without a fight, which made many people feel that it was a pity and unsatisfying result. But in reality, Wang Lin, who was unable to enter the Yellow Springs Death Realm, would end up the same even if he fought Yu Hongyan. But most people didn't know this. Many people complained in their hearts. This isn't as good as Dao Yuding winning. Before Wang Lin and Dao Yuding fought, many people hoped that Dao Yuding could defeat Wang Lin and fight Yu Hongyan in the finals. On one hand, they didn't want Xianmin Tianzong to be too strong and turn the finals into a fight between their sections. On the other hand, many people hoped to see Yu Hongyan and Dao Yuding, the two peerless beauties, fight head-on. One was as blazing as fire, defeating the Sun-Moon Sword Sect's dual sword amalgamation by himself, and then suppressing his junior brother Yang Qing, who also performed well, with an absolute advantage. Then, he defeated the Great Qin Dynasty's royal family's younger generation, the strongest foundation establishment stage cultivator, Shi Shaoqian. Yu Hongyan's path of advancement was very successful. His aura became stronger and stronger. In the end, he was like a heavenly fire that was unstoppable. As for the other, she was as cold as ice. She had also defeated the sword companion of the Sun-Moon Sword Sect and forcefully advanced. Then, she had displayed the Heavenly Pool Sect's secret technique, the Ice Essence Burning Flame, which was generally believed to only be cultivated by nascent soul cultivators, and defeated her mortal enemy, the Northern Militant cultivators. Her battle with Wang Lin also told everyone that her previous strength was still not her limit. Her volcanic roar spell was truly earth-shattering like a volcano eruption, and in the end, she was defeated by Wang Lin by half a move. Dao Yuding's performance was also eye-catching. Many people felt it was regretful that they couldn't see her fight with Yu Hongyan. Lin Feng glanced at Dao Yuding before looking at the great Qin dynasty's camp. There, Dao Jiqiang lowered his head and did not look at Dao Yuding anymore. On the other side, Shi Shaoqian was blocked by Shi Xingyan. He had a displeased expression on his face. Anyone who saw him could not help but laugh. However, Lin Feng paid more attention to Shi Shaoqian than to Dao Yuding. He was not the only one. The attention of the other essence soul experts also drifted to Shi Shaoqian from time to time. The fact that this child had connections with the Taishu Temple made many people nervous. Although Shi Shaoqian was only at the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm, as the grandson of the Prince of Tranquility, Shi Zongyue, his status was not ordinary. King and Liang's faction had always had a close relationship with the Great Qin dynasty. Lin Feng previously noticed that when Shi Shaoqian performed the infinite transformation, Dao Master Chong Lu and Dao Master Gamble, who were also from the Great Qin dynasty's camp, also looked surprised. It seemed that they had not known about this before. Only the Prince of Tranquility, Shi Zongyue's expression did not change. It was obvious that he already knew. Is this an idle move by the Taishu Temple, or is it an arrangement? Lin Feng thought to himself. Is it from the conservative faction or the radical faction? As he thought about it, Lin Feng and the other Essence Soul experts followed behind Shi Zongyue and flew above the North Wind Sea. Although it was Lin Feng's first time participating in the Desolate Sea Assembly, it was not the first time the Desolate Sea Assembly had been held. Lin Feng had long heard about the ancient Desolate Sea Realm. The entrance to the ancient Desolate Sea Realm was at the deepest part of the North Wind Sea. Once the entrance was opened, cultivators below the Yuanying stage could enter. On the other side of the entrance, which was connected to the North Wind Sea, was the deepest part of the Desolate Sea Realm's ancient Desolate Sea Realm. It was a 10,000-meter deep abyss. The underwater pressure was so great that even the powerful magic power of a golden elixir period cultivator might not be able to withstand it. If a Foundation establishment cultivator entered it, they would be directly crushed into a meat patty. It was fine at the bottom of the North Wind Sea in the vast thousand world. The dimensional force of the two worlds blocked the water pressure of the Desolate Sea Realm on the other side. However, after entering the ancient Desolate Sea Realm through the spatial crack, they had to face this problem. At this time, they needed to borrow the sea dragon boats that the Great Qin dynasty had perfected. By riding on the sea dragon boats, they could pass through the deep sea of the ancient Desolate Sea Realm and float to the surface of the sea to see the sky of the ancient Desolate Sea Realm. In addition, a large amount of resources in the ancient Desolate Sea Realm existed in the sea. At this time, they needed the help of the sea dragon boats to collect these resources. Shi Zongyue put his palms together slightly, and waves suddenly rose and fell on the surface of the North Wind Sea. 8 dark, streamlined, and completely enclosed ships that resembled loaches floated to the surface of the water. They were the sea dragon ships. The size of these sea dragon boats are not large, at most 20 meters long, but Lin Feng can feel the mana fluctuations within them. On the bodies of the boats are densely packed rows of formations. These formations are all used to resist the heavy pressure of the deep sea. At this time, Shi Zongyue said, "Fellow Taoists, each of you can take a sea dragon boat and refine it with your own magic power." When the disciples return from the ancient Desolate Sea Realm, you can return these sea dragon boats to the Great Qin dynasty. Lin Feng and the others nodded. This was inevitable. The sea dragon boats for their disciples had to be refined by themselves. Otherwise, if they were controlled by the Great Qin dynasty and something bad happened to them in the deep sea, they would not be able to reason with them. Unless they were mortal enemies, the Great Qin dynasty would naturally not do such a despicable thing. However, no one was willing to put their own life and death on the moral integrity of others. While Lin Feng's main body was refining the sea dragon boat, his Taishu clone had quietly blended into the crowd and entered the hidden dragon pot with everyone. The hidden dragon pot was very lively at this moment. All kinds of transactions were going on. Just a moment ago, the competitors were red in the face and neck, but now, they were gathered together. One side was a buyer, and the other was a seller, constantly haggling over the price, or two people were eyeing the same item, fighting until their faces were red with anger. Apart from mortal enemies like the Celestial Pool sect and the Northern Militant Royal Court, there was nothing that could not be communicated with each other. This was also one of the main contents of the Desolate Sea Realm Assembly, the exchange of cultivation resources. It was different from the vast Sea Realm Assembly held by the Heavenly Trade Pavilion in the Sand Continent City, where there were special talisman coins as currency. Here, everyone basically bartered. Apart from this, the young cultivators of the various large forces were also communicating with each other and expanding their network. If they formed a good relationship today, they might have unexpected gains in the future. The Desolate Sea Realm Assembly was not only a place for the various forces to display their talent reserves, but also a chance for the disciples to strengthen contact and improve their relationship. For example, Lin Feng could see that the disciples of his Xianmin Tianzong were quite popular among the crowd. The cultivators of the Golden Elixir period were fine. Many Foundation establishment cultivators gathered around Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing. Even Zhuge Fengling benefited a bit from it. Some people with ulterior motives felt that as Lin Feng's direct disciples, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing's identities were too central. Thus, they were more cautious. Thus, they changed their target to Zhuge Fengling, trying to get more information about Xianmin Tianzong from her. Lin Feng couldn't help but secretly laugh at this scene. He thought that these people were completely blind. Not to mention that Zhuge Fengling was very sly and wouldn't be tricked by them. Even if she was stupid, naive, and simple, these people wouldn't be able to get any valuable information from her. This was because Zhuge Fengling herself was ignorant about most things about Xianmin Tianzong and didn't know anything. However, this girl was indeed very slippery. She was able to deceive many people. There were those who welcomed Xianmin Tianzong's group, and naturally, there were those who didn't. For example, the Heavenly Pool sect and the whole clan didn't have a good impression of Xiao Buddy and Yu Hongyan. On the other hand, the cultivators from the Northern Militant Imperial Court found Xianmin Tianzong's group pleasing to the eye. Lin Feng's eyes swept over and saw Zhu Yi talking to a Northern Militant man dressed in a different race's attire. From the looks of it, they seemed to have their eyes on something. Other than Zhu Yi, there were other people around the Northern Militant man. Everyone's eyes fell on a black rock under the man's feet. This black rock was dim and looked very ordinary, but when Lin Feng scanned it with his divine sense, he immediately found something extraordinary about it. Even with Lin Feng's current divine sense, he couldn't see through it. His divine sense was like a clay ox entering the sea, being swallowed by the black rock. This made Lin Feng a bit interested. As expected, something that Zhu Yi has his eyes on can't be wrong. A bright light, it couldn't be called a bright light anymore. It was simply a lighthouse. However, who said that the people of the different races were simple and honest? This seemingly rough-looking Northern Militant man's proposed method of trade made everyone secretly frown. Cutting the stone. Everyone could see that this black rock was actually the original embryo of a treasure, just like a rock that was wrapped in beautiful jade. Everyone, let's compare our luck. If we're lucky, we'll cut the stone. Whoever cuts out the treasure inside will have the item. But cutting the stone wasn't free. Everyone who cut the stone had to give an item to this man. If they didn't cut out any treasure, the item would not be returned. This man was really good at doing business. Once this method of trade was proposed, it immediately attracted the interest of everyone. Everyone secretly frowned, but at the same time, their competitive spirit was aroused. Divine sense detection didn't work, so no one could determine where the true treasure was on the black rock. They didn't even know what the size of the treasure was, and the black rock was 1 square foot. If the true treasure was the size of a grain of rice, it was unknown how many cuts it would take to cut it out. If their luck was bad, even if everyone here went bankrupt, they wouldn't be able to cut it out. The Northern Militant man clearly saw everyone's worries and quickly said, "After a rock is cut, once it leaves the rock and leaves the nourishment of the treasure, the divine sense swallowing characteristic will disappear and it will become a normal rock. As he spoke, he took out a long blade and cut off a small piece from the corner of the black rock. After the rock was separated from the rock, although its appearance didn't change at all, the divine sense swallowing ability had indeed disappeared. Seeing this, everyone's hearts became excited and they all revealed expressions of eagerness. Lin Feng looked at the black rock and slightly nodded. This is a lot simpler. We just need to cut it in half from the middle each time. This will greatly increase the speed at which useless rocks are eliminated, but if our luck isn't good, we will still have to cut it many times. The northern militant man gave a price. He knew that doing business like this was a bit against the rules, so he didn't ask for a high price for everyone to cut the rock once. Zhu Yi's expression slightly changed, and he took a step forward, but before he could speak, a black-clothed young man suddenly walked forward. He pulled out a blade and slashed at the black rock. The Hua clan's second young master, Hua Ming. Chapter 298. Hua Ming came up, and without saying a word, he directly slashed at the black rock. At the same time he slashed, he threw something to the large northern militant man. This was the bargaining chip that the large northern militant man had used against the Hua family to cut the rock. Zhu Yi's eyebrows rose, and he threw 5 sonic thunder great returning pills to the northern militant man. Then he unsheathed his sword, and with 2 slashes, he blocked Hua Ming's slash. All of a sudden, Hua Ming's murderous aura erupted from his entire body. His long saber surged with an astonishing amount of transcendence energy. It had already transformed into an incomparably vicious Azura World Devastator saber. There was no room for retreat. It was a powerful attack. Its target was both the black boulder and Zhu Yi. The aura of his blade seemed to want to split Zhu Yi and the black rock in half. When the others saw this, they all revealed excited expressions as they stared at Zhu Yi and Hua Ming. Everyone knew that the first person to make the cut might not necessarily be able to gain an advantage. It was very likely that it would be a gift to those who came later, narrowing down the choices of those who came later. The further one made the cut, the higher the chance of success, but it was also very likely that others would beat them to it. At that time, it would be too late for regrets. This stone-cutting transaction, other than gambling on luck, was mostly a test of everyone's mental fortitude. He couldn't keep his cool, and neither could he be indecisive and overcautious. Zhu Yi and Hua Ming might have understood this, but the two of them had simultaneously chosen to fight for the position of being the first. This was a battle of mental momentum. If the first cut was not successful, they would bid a second time, but before that, they had to first win momentum and put pressure on the minds of others. Facing Hua Ming's blade, Zhu Yi's expression was calm without the slightest change. His self-created sword of change changed again. With 2 slashes, one was the can sword of water and the other was the DUI sword of water. The can was above and the DUI was below. There is water above the swamp. Temperament. A gentleman controls several degrees to discuss virtue. There is water in the swamp, but the flow is limited. If there is too much, it will overflow outside the swamp. Therefore, there must be temperament, which is why it is called temperament. Only with temperament could one stay new. Only with temperament could one be stable. Only with temperament could one be perfect. Zhu Yi's trigram, Sword Dao, firmly restrained Hua Ming's Azura World Devastator blade, which was full of murderous intent, making it impossible for him to take another step forward. Hua Ming stared intently at Zhu Yi. Just as he was about to change his move, Zhu Yi had already retracted his longsword. With a slash, the black boulder was directly split into 2. The left half of the rock instantly lost its original spirituality and turned into an ordinary rock. It could no longer devour the probing divine sense of a cultivator. Only the right half of the black rock still retained a strong spirituality. When a human's divine sense entered it, it disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. After Zhu Yi split the rock with his sword, he sheathed his sword. Silently, He stood on the spot with a calm expression. Huoming stared at Zhu Yi for a long time. In the end, he didn't continue to attack. However, he didn't use his saber to cut the stone. Instead, he sheathed his saber. The murderous aura around him converged. His entire body was like a bloody butcher's knife that had been sheathed. He no longer exuded any murderous intent. After losing to Zhu Yi, Huoming didn't get to be the first stonecutter. He didn't want to be the second stonecutter. There was no value in being the second stonecutter. It was better to wait until the next stonecutter was getting smaller and smaller. When the others saw that Huoming didn't continue to compete with Zhu Yi, they immediately revealed disappointed expressions. Those who were watching the show were never afraid of things getting out of hand. Many of them couldn't wait for Huoming to fly into a rage out of humiliation. He simply stopped cutting the stone and directly fought with Zhu Yi, starting a battle at the level of the golden elixir period in advance. However, some people with higher cultivation bases and better eyesight looked at Huoming with a more serious expression. Zhu Yi was one of them. Silently, he looked at Huoming and thought to himself, if it was his younger brother, Huochun, he would have lost face and attacked Huoming directly. However, that kind of person is nothing to be afraid of. This Huoming can control his anger and killing intent at will. On the surface, his murderous intent is awe-inspiring, but in fact, his heart is always calm. This is in line with the concept of the division trigram sword art. This person is a formidable opponent. Lin Feng looked at Huoming with a hint of approval in his eyes. If this Huoming doesn't die young, he will definitely become a pillar of the Hua family in the future. Cultivating the Azura tactics and the Azura World Annihilation Blade that are filled with violent killing intent, yet he is able to control his emotions at will. This kind of temperament is rare. The Hua family members are ranked according to their strength. I heard that this Huoming is only ranked second among his peers. What kind of person is he? I'm interested. I wonder how he compares to Shi Xingyun, Jiao Junshin, and Tao Yaoyao. Golden elixir period cultivators were always the backbone of a large force, connecting the previous and the next. The strength and talent of a golden elixir period cultivator often determined the future development potential of a sect. While Lin Feng was thinking, he saw that the group of people surrounding the black boulder, after Zhu Yi made the first cut, suddenly no one made a move. Although the price of one cut was not very high, if there was no result, then the chips paid would be equivalent to throwing away the water in vain. To be more accurate, if thrown into the water, one could still hear sound. But if thrown here, there was a high possibility that there would be nothing, and it would be a wedding dress for the later generation. No one knew what kind of treasure was inside the black boulder. Whether it was worth paying such a huge price and going through more than one cut, everyone had no idea. If there was no result after a few cuts, then it would not be a tragedy, but a tragedy. At this time, a Celerida's sword sect disciple suddenly stood out, paying the chips without saying a word, and then chopping down with a sword. His idea was very simple. What if the stone embryo was very thin, but the size of the treasure inside was not small? Perhaps this sword could directly cut it out. If the size of the treasure was larger, then the earlier the knife was cut, the easier it would be to cut it out. But unfortunately, the final result disappointed him. The black boulder once again split into two. One of the pieces lost its spirituality and became ordinary stone, while the other still retained its original mysterious spirituality. At this time, everyone began to hesitate. The boulder only had a quarter of its original size left, but the previous two people all returned without any results, causing everyone to have many misgivings. Lin Feng faintly smiled. Right now at this time, perhaps it was the most awkward time. Going down, every cut had the possibility of cutting out a treasure, but it was also very possible that he himself would fail, but help the later generation greatly increase their chances of success. This was the most tangled moment. Those who truly cared about the treasure, at this moment the psychological pressure was about to reach the peak. Everyone present were all cultivators who formed the golden elixir, breaking through the threshold of life and death. Their willpower was strong and tenacious, but facing this kind of awkward situation at this moment, They all felt troubled. Of course, there were also people who didn't care. A purple sky path cultivator smiled and said, "It's not like there's only one chance to choose. What are you hesitating for?" He threw a bluish-purple crystal into the northern militant man's hand and then gathered mana, condensing it into a lightning blade at the edge of his palm, lightly slicing towards the boulder. The boulder split into two. The treasure still didn't appear. It was still a situation where half of the boulder was eliminated. That purple sky path cultivator smacked his lips, looking at the northern militant man who was the seller. "I say, fellow cultivator, you wouldn't have gotten a pure boulder to deceive everyone here, right?" The northern militant man snorted. "Just cut it. If in the end nothing comes out, then I'll return all the traded items as they were and also apologize to everyone participating in the spell gathering." "Good. It's good to have you say that." The cultivator from Purple Firmament Path smiled. After saying that, he tossed out another blue-silver crystal and prepared to make a second slash. At this moment, Huaming suddenly moved and took the initiative to slash the black boulder with his blade. The Purple Sky Path cultivator raised his eyebrows slightly, smiled, and shrugged his shoulders, not stopping him. In the end, Huaming's blade still didn't cut out anything. Huaming slightly frowned and stared at the even finer black boulder for a while before suddenly turning around and leaving without looking back. The surrounding crowd was slightly stunned, and someone muttered, "What? He still wants to be the first to slash? I thought he would make a big move later. Who knew that he would run away after failing with one slash? His temperament is too bad." That's right, his mental quality is too bad. He retreated at the slightest setback. Someone at the side echoed. When Zhu Yi and the Purple Sky Path cultivator heard this, they shook their heads at the same time. Noticing each other's actions, their eyes slightly lit up. It's not that Huaming can't take setbacks, but he gave up dejectedly because of it. The Purple Sky Path cultivator said with a smile. On the contrary, he had a breakthrough in his mental state while judging the gains and losses in the previous round, and he broke through the bottleneck of his Dao technique. He left now to consolidate his Dao technique realm. Compared to a breakthrough in his mental state, the treasures here actually don't matter to him. Some of the surrounding people looked as if they had understood something, while some looked in disbelief. However, Zhu Yi nodded slightly at the side. That's right. He raised his head to look at the Purple Sky Path cultivator and said seriously, "I'm Zhu Yi. May I know how to address you, fellow Taoist?" The young cultivator smiled brightly, and there was even a dimple on the right side of his cheek. "I'm Goulet of the Purple Sky Path. Fellow Taoist Zhu, you're too polite." Zhu Yi nodded. "Fellow Taoist Gu, do you want to make the next slash?" Goulet smiled and said, "I don't calculate anything. I'm just doing what I feel like doing." As he spoke, the second slash had already landed. Unfortunately, there was still no harvest. At this point, the size of the black rock had shrunk rapidly. Everyone stared at the rock nervously, and the atmosphere in the air became more and more solemn, as if the entire space was about to freeze. Goulet didn't stop. He handed the third piece of blue-purple crystal to the burly northern militant man and made his third slash. Things don't happen more than 3 times. Goulet looked up at the sky and sighed. He shook his head and looked at the black rock that had shrunk to the size of an adult's fist. He smiled helplessly and bitterly. "Looks like this treasure is destined to have no fate with me today." Zhu Yi smiled slightly and didn't say anything, but he still didn't make a move. Facing the black rock that had shrunk to a very small size, the others started to become restless. It was very possible that this slash could cut out the treasure. Chapter 299. If we continue to cut according to the current method and cut in half from the middle, we still need 2 more cuts. Lin Feng smiled slightly. After cutting it twice, he could already make the correct judgment. Because the volume of the black rock was constantly being cut and shrinking. In fact, its spirituality that blocked the exploration of the cultivator's mana and divine sense was also constantly becoming weaker. The more agile the soul, and the stronger the divine sense of the cultivator, the easier it was to penetrate the barrier of the black rock and detect the true appearance of the hidden treasure inside. Although the cultivation of this iron tree clone of Lin Feng at the scene was limited, the strength and activity of the soul was the same as Lin Feng's, so he could clearly see that in the black rock, there was something that looked like a beast's tooth hidden silently. However, this bone tooth was not located in the center of the rock, but in the corner of the side. So if we still cut in half from the middle, we still need 2 more cuts to really touch the bone tooth. Looking at Zhu Yi's expression, Lin Feng knew that he had already vaguely seen the details of the black rock. Among all of Lin Feng's disciples, in terms of the strength of the soul, Wang Lin was the first in the foundation building realm. Although he was only in the early stage of the foundation building realm, in terms of the strength and spirituality of the soul, Wang Lin was above Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing. And among the 3 disciples in the Golden Elixir period, Zhu Yi's soul was the most powerful, almost exceeding the limit of the cultivators in the Golden Elixir period. However, although he could vaguely sense the existence of the bone tooth, he still couldn't determine its specific location. So Zhu Yi kept his cool and waited patiently. If he missed the opportunity to meet the bone tooth because of this, then Zhu Yi could only sigh and say that he was not fated, and there was nothing else to say. What made Lin Feng frown slightly was that the person who cut the rock next seemed to want to take a different path. He no longer cut from middle, but hesitated back and forth between the 2 ends of the black rock, preparing to cut an unequal portion. If he just happened to choose Guya's side, the result of this strike would be clear. However, what made Lin Feng heave a sigh of relief was that this person ultimately chose the other side. Naturally, he didn't manage to cut anything. At this moment, Zhu Yi's eyes flickered. He could already vaguely grasp the exact location of Guya. He immediately threw out another 5 thunderous recover pills, then unsheathed his sword and slashed at the black rock. Just as Zhu Yi made his move, 3 people suddenly jumped out from the crowd and threw some treasures to the northern militant. Then, they rushed towards the black rock together. When Lin Feng saw this, he immediately knew that these people had been watching Zhu Yi. They were waiting for Zhu Yi to make a move, then they would take the opportunity to attack. These 3 cultivators actually used Zhu Yi's judgment as a yardstick. You guys really think highly of this disciple of mine. Lin Feng shook his head and laughed. But I have to say, young lads, you have good taste. Well done. But the problem was that it was useless. Facing the 3 people who suddenly rushed out, Zhu Yi didn't even blink. The light and dark golden elixir in his body shook violently. He flipped his palm, and a black and a white aura of mana rushed out. The white mana turned into a bright and resplendent light, while the black mana turned into an endless abyss, quiet and dark. The 2 mana turned into 2 extremes of light and darkness, forming a huge barrier. The shape was like an altar. It looked like a mandala flower, but it wasn't a mandala flower. Zhu Yi's light and dark mandala barrier of all heavens. The 3 people's expressions changed drastically. They made a prompt decision to stop moving forward. They each cast spells and blasted towards Zhu Yi's light and dark barrier. The light and dark mandala barrier of all heavens trapped all the mana of the 3 people. Then, it suddenly shrank and collapsed towards the center. It was like a small nirvana of heaven and earth, directly destroying all the spells of the 3 people. The onlookers all looked at Zhu Yi in horror. The ferocity of Zhu Yi's spell was really beyond their expectations. As expected of a fierce person who can fight against the Yuanian patriarch, everyone had such a thought in their minds. After watching the previous competition, I thought that the Foundation establishment disciples of Xianmen Tianzong were already fierce enough. Now, it seems that the disciples of the Golden Elixir period are even more ferocious. The 3 people's expressions were ugly, but they didn't dare to continue to act rashly. They could only watch as Zhu Yi waved his long sword and cut open the black rock, revealing a treasure in the shape of a ferocious beast fawn. The fawn was very sharp, and there was a terrifying dark aura coming from it. It was ominous and made people shudder. It was as if they were looking at a bottomless abyss. The Fong was completely black and flashed with a faint black light. It was filled with a strange and mysterious concept of power. Zhu Yi held the black, ferocious beast Fong in his hand and looked at the northern militant man. The other person was also looking at the Fong in his hand. Seeing Zhu Yi look over, he quickly said, "Since this treasure was cut out by Dao Brother, it naturally belongs to Dao Brother." Zhu Yi nodded and then looked at the others. Everyone looked at Zhu Yi with unkind gazes, especially those who had paid the price but hadn't cut out the Fong. Gu Lei smiled at the side and said, "It seems that this treasure is fated with Dao Brother Zhu. Gu Lei will congratulate Dao Brother first." Standing together with Zhu Yi, the deterrence instantly multiplied. Not many people wanted to offend Xianmin Tianzong and Zi Xiao Dao at the same time. Although the group was unwilling, they could only leave. Zhu Yi stared at the three people who wanted to take it and calmly said, "You are cultivators of the Qin dynasty?" The tall and thin youth who was the leader of the three heard this and fiercely turned his head. "What? You still want to continue fighting? If you want to try, I want to see just how much ability you have." He understood that he was in the hidden dragon pot, and Zhu Yi couldn't kill him anyway, so the tall and thin youth was not afraid at all. Zhu Yi didn't even look at the tall and thin youth and said to his two companions, "Go back and tell Princess Nebula to come and get him." With that, Zhu Yi waved his hand and the light and dark mandala world barrier appeared again, covering the tall and thin youth. The tall and thin youth roared, and a white gold light dragon appeared around him. He cultivated one of the 5 Emperor True Dragon scriptures, the Tao technique recorded in the White Dragon Imperial Book. He wanted to use the white gold light dragon to break through Zhu Yi's light and dark barrier, but he was badly injured. In the barrier, countless dazzling rays of light intertwined with countless dark and gloomy black lines. It was like the stars in the sky, weaving an independent small world. No matter how the white gold light dragon struggled and roared, it couldn't break free. However, the light and dark barrier didn't collapse like before. It only trapped the tall and thin youth in it like a cage. The tall and thin youth's face turned red. Like Shi Shaoqian, he was also a disciple of the royal family. Although he wasn't a legitimate member of the royal family, he was still a relative of the royal family. When had he ever been imprisoned like a prisoner? This kind of humiliation was even worse than killing him. The other 2 cultivators who were in the golden elixir period were his followers. They wanted to help, but were easily pushed back by Zhu Yi. They didn't dare to say anything and could only return to look for Shi Xingyun. Zhu Yi ignored the tall and thin young man who was cursing and roaring and directly put away the light and darkness boundary. He turned around and nodded to Gu Lei. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Gu Lei smiled and said, "You're welcome. Come with me if you're free. I'll introduce you to my senior and junior brothers." Zhu Yi left with him. He pondered as he walked. The bone tooth seems to contain some kind of dark power. I wonder where it came from. He couldn't figure out the details of the black bone Fong for a while, but Lin Feng, with the help of the system, identified this bone Fong of a fierce beast. Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. It's the tooth of the dark beast Ming. What a pleasant surprise. Lin Feng had obtained an artifact from the system's lottery. It was called the Dark Crow Jade Statue, which contained the soul power of the fierce bird Tao Wu. Tao Wu, also known as the Dark Crow, was a primordial demon that ran amok in the world. It was born from the endless darkness and mastered the secret of dark power. However, Tao Wu was not the most powerful creature in the darkness. The king of the dark beasts was the dark beast Ming. Du looked like a leopard with a single horn on its head. Its body was pitch black, and there were blue-purple patterns on its body. It was extremely ferocious and was a primordial demon that was stronger than Tao Wu. When Lin Feng obtained the Dark Crow Jade Statue, although he had some understanding of the path of dark power, he still felt that there was something lacking. He was still a distance away from truly understanding it. On one hand, it was because the soul of Tao Wu in the Dark Crow Jade Statue was incomplete. On the other hand, it was because Tao Wu was still a step away from the origin of dark power. But now that they had obtained Ming Du's bone tooth, whether it was Lin Feng or Zhu Yi, they had a feasible path to understand the path of dark power. Light and darkness were the two top extreme powers. On the path of light, Lin Feng and his disciple had the immeasurable light Buddhist scripture of the Great Thunderclap Temple. If they could understand the origin of dark power that Ming Du controlled, then their understanding of the two extreme powers of light and darkness would definitely reach a whole new level. Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone did not follow behind Zhu Yi and Gu Lei. Instead, he strolled around by himself and looked at the contents of the transactions. However, his divine sense expanded and he still paid attention to his disciples. Then, he saw Gu Lei leading Zhu Yi to a group of purple cloud path cultivators. Coincidentally, Xiao Budian was there too. Seeing Zhu Yi come over, Xiao Budian immediately smiled and said, "Second senior brother, let me introduce you. This sister is Li Kuei-yin from Purple Cloud Path." Zhu Yi was slightly stunned, and Lin Feng was even more dumbstruck. At this moment, Xiao Budian's smile was brilliant, his gaze was pure, and his black pupils were as clean as crystals. No matter how one looked at him, he was an extremely cute Shoda. His mouth was unbelievably sweet, and it gave Lin Feng goosebumps all over his body. He carefully looked at that Li Kuei-yin, and it turned out to be a tall female cultivator. Like Gu Lei, she was at the late stage of golden elixir. Her facial features were rather strong, and the bridge of her nose was high. It could be seen that she was a person with a strong and determined personality. However, at this moment, her expression was gentle, and her gaze towards Xiao Budian was filled with warmth. It was obvious that she really liked this Shoda in front of her. Although she looked young, her actual age was almost 100 years old. Xiao Budian's sweet mouth kept calling her sister, making her elated. Zhu Yi only came back to his senses after a long time, and secretly transmitted his voice to Xiao Budian. "What the hell are you doing now?" Xiao Budian turned his back on Li Kuei-yin and the others, and made a face at him. Chapter 300. Zhu Yi used his power to transmit his voice to the little guy. "Why are you being so nice for no reason? What are you up to now?" The little guy also used his power to transmit his voice to Zhu. "I just got a thunder spirit fruit from this senior sister from the Purple Cloud Path. It tastes pretty good, so I want to get some more." Zhu Yi was annoyed and amused at the same time. "When did you become a vegetarian?" The little guy replied indifferently. "As long as it tastes good, I don't mind meat or vegetables. After eating too much blood food, it's good to have a change of taste, and it can also clear my stomach." "Can't you think about something else other than eating?" Zhu Yi said snappily. The little guy secretly curled his lips. "When I grow up, I'll think about other things." "You're just a lazy rascal," Zhu Yi said without any trace of politeness. "Besides, if you really like her thunder spirit fruit, you can just trade it with her. Is there a need to do this empty-handed?" The little guy blinked his eyes. "All right, I forgot." He turned to look at Li Kuei-yin and said with a smile, "Senior Sister Li, I want to trade a few more thunder spirit fruits with you, okay? I can trade with you with my treasures." Li Kuei-yin said with a smile, "Don't talk about trade. These thunder spirit fruits aren't anything special. If you like them, just eat them." Gu Lei smiled at the side. "Kuin, why don't I see you being so generous to me normally?" Li Kuei-yin was very impolite to him. She rolled her eyes. "You usually eat thunder spirit fruits as if they are your meals. Do you still need me to provide you with them?" Gu Lei shook his head and smiled. A shallow dimple appeared at the corner of his mouth as he looked at Li Kuei-yin helplessly. Looking at the two of them, Zhu Yi and Xiao Budian looked at each other and revealed smiles on their faces. There was no need to talk about Zhu Yi, but Xiao Budian was a little mischievous. The two of them could see that the relationship between Gu Lei and Li Kuei-yin was actually extremely close, and their gazes were filled with warmth when they looked at each other. It was very likely that the two of them were a pair of Tao companions. At this time, a tall and strong man dressed in the attire of the northern militant tribe walked over. Before he arrived, his voice had already arrived, laughing loudly from afar. "Gu Lei, you've suffered again, right?" Gu Lei smiled and said nothing. Li Kuei squinted at the man. Do Kuan, are you itching for a beating again? The person who came was the most outstanding golden elixir period cultivator among the younger generation of the Northern Militant Imperial Court, Dokun. His vitality was as majestic as a dragon. Even a true ancient dragon, a golden elixir demon commander, might not be stronger than him in terms of physical strength. Out of all the disciples of the younger generation that participated in the Wasteland Sea Assembly, only this person could threaten the little guy in terms of physical strength. Do Kuan was clearly very familiar with Li Kuei. He laughed and said, Goulet's words are quite convincing. Li Kuei, I don't feel anything when you say it. Li Kuei laughed and scolded, You big bear, I'll let you know how powerful I am sooner or later. Beside Do Kuan was a thin young man dressed in the same attire of a different tribe, but his clothes were much more complicated. He faintly smiled and said, I still want to see Do Kuan and fellow Taoist Gu fight again. Goulet smiled and said, Don't even think about it. After beating this big bear once, I'm not going to fight him again. I won't give him a chance to make a comeback. He looked at the thin young man and said, Speaking of which, I want to fight you more, Sangloa. The people that came into contact with your northern militant before were all martial cultivators. A divine soul warlock like you is really too rare. When the little guy and Zhu Yi heard this, their gazes fell on the thin young man called Sangloa. Just as Goulet said, it was extremely common for cultivators to cultivate the physical body in the Northern Militant Imperial Court. There were at least 8 out of 10 cultivators. However, there was another branch of the Northern Militant Imperial Court that specialized in the divine soul. There were very few of them, and most of them lived in seclusion and rarely showed their faces, so it was even rarer to see them. Even the distant Lin Feng's divine sense paused on Sangloa for a moment. He was also very interested in the northern militant warlock who did not mobilize and control the yuan qi of heaven and earth, and instead specialized in the divine soul technique. According to Lin Feng's knowledge, to specifically train in soul techniques and give up on the Tao technique of controlling vitality, apart from the Void Temple's heaven wander to the Void Temple in the vast land of the divine continent in the human cultivation world, only the Northern Militant Imperial Court has Tao techniques that specifically train in the soul. On the contrary, among the demon race, there were many clans that did not cultivate the physical body or demonic energy, but specialized in the divine soul technique. Your Purple Heaven Pass Thunder technique is the most effective at restraining divine soul techniques. You really have a good idea. Seeing Goulet, who did not hide his eagerness to try, Sangloa smiled and shook his head. His gaze fell more on Zhu Yi and Xiao Budian. If there is a chance, Sangloa would like to compare notes with the 2 fellow Taoists from Xianmen Tianzong. Although this person was dressed in a different race's attire, his speech was neither fast nor slow. He was very different from the usual bold and courageous northern militant people. Zhu Yi faintly smiled. Even if we can't draw lots for the spell assembly, there will always be a chance to compare notes. Xiao Budian was just about to open his mouth to say something when his expression suddenly changed. He turned his head and saw a snow-clothed youth staring at him with a sneer. Seeing Xiao Budian look over, this person did not restrain his gaze in the slightest. Instead, his provocation became even stronger. Zhu Yi turned his head and looked at him. Heavenly Lake Sect, I remember he's called Mu Ji Hai. Xiao Budian shrugged his shoulders and looked at Mu Ji Hai with a dangerous look in his eyes. Do Kuan and Sangloa looked at Mu Ji Hai and sneered. Do Kuan said, Ignore him. He's just a jumping clown, a pitiful worm living in Song Qingyuan's shadow. Song Qingyuan? The figure of a youth with a polite smile appeared in the minds of Zhu Yi and Xiao Budian at the same time. But when they thought of Song Qingyuan, they couldn't help but feel a slight chill from the bottom of their hearts, as if they were facing a gloomy and slippery poisonous snake. It couldn't be said to be terrifying, but it made people feel very uncomfortable. Sangloa looked at Mu Ji Hai and slowly said, This person cultivates Tao techniques, and his talent can be considered outstanding, but his personality is very flawed. If nothing unexpected happens, he truly will not have the chance to surpass Song Qingyuan in this lifetime. Mu Jihai's gaze moved between Xiao Buddy and Do Kuan and the other northern militant cultivators before finally stopping on Xiao Buddian. With a sneer, he made a vicious, throat-slitting gesture at Xiao Buddian. Xiao Buddian sneered. The gaze he used to look at Mu Jihai was like an adult looking at a naughty child. For someone who was only 10 years old to use this kind of gaze to look at someone was truly the sharpest form of ridicule. Mu Jihai's gaze grew colder and colder, as if he couldn't help but want to immediately act. However, his gaze slightly slanted, as if he had seen something that attracted his attention. With a cold snort, he turned around and walked to the other side. Xiao Buddian followed his gaze and saw a man and woman standing together. The woman was the one who had previously battled with Wang Lin and lost by half a move, Dao Yuding. As for the man, he was shockingly the person they had just mentioned, Song Qingyuan. Song Qingyuan still had a refined and courteous appearance, a warm smile on his face. But Dao Yuding was completely different from before. She, who had always been incomparably indifferent towards everything, was now trembling slightly in front of Song Qingyuan. This trembling was not because of excitement, but because of fear. Because of fear, her body was trembling uncontrollably, just like a rabbit or deer in the natural world facing a wolf, tiger, or leopard. Song Qingyuan faintly smiled as he spoke, then led the way out of the dragon concealing pot. Dao Yuding hesitated for a moment, then followed him out. Behind them was Mu Jihai. He stared at Song Qingyuan's back with a gloomy expression and also followed him out of the dragon concealing pot. Seeing this scene, Xiao Buddian's curiosity was aroused. After saying goodbye to Zhu, Yi, and the others, he also jumped out of the dragon concealing pot. This scene fell into Lin Feng's eyes, but Lin Feng didn't care much about it. Although Lin Feng had some vague plans and ideas about the relationship between Dao Jiqiang and Dao Yuding had no direct contact with him after all. Anyway, with the talent and potential that Dao Yuding had now shown, Song Qingyuan couldn't really do anything to her. Otherwise, Chao Wei would be the first to deal with him. Even if he was Chao Wei's biological son. If he killed Dao Yuding, Chao Wei would not let him off easily. Not to mention that he was also a rising star of the Tianqi sect and a leading figure of the new generation. Even if he was Chao Wei's son, if he killed Dao Yuding, Chao Wei would not let him have a good time. At present, Dao Yuding's strength was inferior to his, but the talent and potential that she displayed was at least at the same level as his. Under normal circumstances, she would be the future pillar of the Tianqi sect, even the successor of the sect master. Therefore, originally, Lin Feng didn't pay much attention to this. Xiao Buddian was curious and wanted to follow them, so Lin Feng let him be. But soon after, Lin Feng found that something was wrong. Mu Jihai followed Song Qingyuan and Dao Yuding. Xiao Buddian followed Mu Jihai, but then someone else followed Xiao Buddian. Moreover, it was a great cultivator of the Yuanying stage. It was a middle-aged man in green clothes. He looked ordinary, but he had a dignified aura. Lin Feng remembered that he belonged to the camp of the Great Qin dynasty. Previously at the Dharma Assembly, he was very low-key and only stood there silently to support the Great Qin dynasty cultivators. But at this moment, Lin Feng could see that although this person acted as if nothing had happened, he was obviously deliberately following Xiao Buddian out of the hidden dragon pot. What is he trying to do? Lin Feng frowned slightly and subconsciously controlled the iron tree clone to follow them. After coming out of the hidden dragon pot, Song Qingyuan took the lead and walked leisurely. Dao Yuding followed behind him, but she seemed to have a lot on her mind, and her eyes faintly revealed a bit of fear. But she didn't say a word, and only pursed her lips tightly as she followed behind Song Qingyuan. Song Qingyuan walked to a secluded place and stopped. He turned to look at Dao Yuding and said with a warm smile, "This place is pretty good, isn't it?" Dao Yuding didn't say anything, and Song Qingyuan didn't expect her to answer. Instead, he turned his gaze in another direction and laughed softly. In that direction, out of Song Qingyuan's line of sight, Mu Jihai stood there expressionlessly. He seemed to know that Song Qingyuan had already discovered him, but his body didn't move at all. Song Qingyuan turned his head and smiled at Dao Yuding. The smile on his face was still warm, but cold mana spread out from his body, enveloping Dao Yuding's entire body. Dao Yuding let out a muffled groan, and her originally pale face lost all color at this moment. A pained expression flashed across her face. Chapter 301. Song Qingyuan's Golden Elixir late-stage cultivation suppressed Dao Yuding's foundation establishment late stage, and it could be said that Dao Yuding had no power to fight back. Dao Yuding might even have a chance to win against an ordinary Golden Elixir early-stage cultivator, but she was powerless against a Golden Elixir late-stage cultivator. What's more, Song Qingyuan was not an ordinary Golden Elixir late-stage cultivator. He was a most outstanding disciple in the Golden Elixir period of a large sect like Celestial Pool Sect, and he could even fight against the Yuanying Patriarch. Song Qingyuan did not need to specifically cast a spell. He only needed to release his mana to envelop Dao Yuding, and it was enough to make her suffer unbearably. The girl's face was drained of blood, and a layer of blue appeared on her pale skin. Her whole body felt like it had fallen into an ice cave. In the next moment, an abnormal layer of red suddenly appeared on her face. She felt as if she was in a volcano and was immersed in boiling magma. Although Lin Feng did not show his face when he came out of the hidden dragon pot, a part of his divine sense was also paying attention to this side. Seeing this scene, he frowned slightly. In his Xianmen Tianzong, this kind of bullying was not allowed to happen. I didn't notice before, but this Dao Yuding's physique seems to be a bit special. Lin Feng suddenly thought of something. The little bit of true yang hidden in her primordial yin is far more vigorous than that of ordinary women. In this case, when she forms her gold core and advances from the Golden Elixir early stage to the Golden Elixir middle stage, I'm afraid that when she passes the yin fire tribulation, the heart fire will be very strong, and it will be far more dangerous than ordinary female cultivators. Lin Feng thought. However, her body belongs to the extremely rare yin and yang coexisting body. Even though it's not a complete harmony of yin and yang, using it to cultivate the Dao techniques and abilities of the Celestial Pool Sect is really a rare talent. No wonder she can learn the Ice Essence Flame technique and Volcano Rumble with her foundation establishment stage level. His comprehension talent is not low, but his innate talent is also a great help. On the other side, although Song Qingyuan was aware of Mu Jihai's existence and even vaguely felt Tiny Tot's position, he did not care. He still smiled and looked at Dao Yuding. He did not relax the pressure of his mana. His magic power was constantly alternating between extreme cold and extreme heat, causing Dao Yuding to be tormented between the two extremes of ice and fire. Do you know why eldest senior brother punished you? Song Qingyuan's voice was still gentle, as if he was just having a heart-to-heart talk with Dao Yuding. First of all, it's naturally because you competed with someone and lost. It doesn't matter if you lose, but you shouldn't have lost to someone from Xianmen Tianzong. A warm smile hung on Song Qingyuan's face. You should also know that Master and the Master of the Celestial Gate do not get along. As his disciples, we naturally have to fight for him. You can lose to anyone, but you can't lose to someone from Beirong or Xianmen Tianzong. Not to mention that you even caused Master to lose his bet. My Celestial Pool Sect is a big family. A core Fire Lotus and a 9 Reincarnation Ice Orchid are nothing, but Master lost his face because of you. Don't you think you should be punished? Song Qingyuan's voice was as gentle as the spring breeze, as if he was having a long and peaceful talk with Dao Yuding. However, the person he was talking to was tightly pursing her lips. Her face was constantly changing between green and red. She was in so much pain that she could not speak. Song Qingyuan seemed to be completely unaware of this and continued to smile. Other than the above reasons, there's another reason that you should also be punished. He looked at Dao Yuding and chuckled. After the competition, The way you looked at Wang Lin was very strange. Although Song Qingyuan's expression did not change at all and his eyes were still filled with a smile, the pressure that Dao Yuding felt suddenly multiplied, almost completely crushing her. But Dao Yuding tried to raise her head and look at Song Qingyuan. Although there was still fear in her eyes, there was more resistance. I know. Eldest senior brother understands what you are thinking. Song Qingyuan smiled and nodded. I know that there is no love between a man and a woman between you and him. To be honest, your emotions are more of unwillingness and fighting spirit. At most, you are a little curious. I know this. He looked at Dao Yuding. But the problem is that when you face other people, you never have so many emotions. You only look at them with indifference. No matter what the reason is, no matter what you think in your eyes, he is different from most people. There's no doubt about this. Eldest senior brother, am I right? Song Qingyuan slowly walked to Dao Yuding's side and moved closer to her ear. The two of them were like a pair of lovers. Song Qingyuan said softly, but you seem to have forgotten that I once said that you are not allowed to have too many emotions towards other people. It is best not to even have hatred or anger. Hatred, anger, curiosity, unwillingness, these will make you remember that person. But I said that between men and women, it is enough for you to remember me. From the first day you entered the sect, you should have already known that you will be my Dao companion. Song Qingyuan smiled. You can only be my Dao companion. Your innate physique is special, and your true yang is far stronger than ordinary women. Your physique is close to the harmony of yin and yang, but it is not a true balance of yin and yang. Therefore, you are destined to encounter a great disaster when you cross the yin fire tribulation during the golden elixir period. Song Qingyuan took a step back and looked straight into Dao Yuding's eyes. He said softly with a smile, and I, your eldest senior brother, happen to be opposite to you. My true yin is strong and my primordial yang. You and I can form a perfect complement and achieve a complete balance of yin and yang. It is a more perfect balance of yin and yang than ordinary Dao companions. Therefore, from the moment you joined the sect, Master decided on our marriage. I've been waiting for the day you reach the core formation stage. Counting the days, with your talent and cultivation, it shouldn't be too far away. I really look forward to it. Song Qingyuan looked up to the sky and sighed. In the dark, Lin Feng and Tiny Tot noticed that Mu Jihai, who was also hiding on the side, suddenly had a layer of cold, killing intent on his originally expressionless face. This killing intent was not aimed at Song Qingyuan, but at Dao Yuding. Lin Feng suddenly understood. Song Qingyuan and Dao Yuding have the opposite physique. Dao Yuding's true yang and her innate primordial yin is too strong, while Song Qingyuan's true yin in his innate primordial yang is too strong. Although they're both yin and yang physiques, it is not an absolutely perfect balance of yin and yang. Although these two people's physiques could achieve twice the results with half the effort and advance by leaps and bounds when cultivating the Celestial Pool Sex Dao technique, the Northern Flaming Sun mystic art, there were also hidden dangers. Dao Yuding's bottleneck was when she advanced from the early stage of foundation establishment to the middle stage of foundation establishment. The yin fire tribulation was far more dangerous than ordinary people. Song Qingyuan's bottleneck was when he advanced from the golden elixir period to the yuan period when he advanced from the nascent soul tribulation. When a cultivator advanced to the yuan period, he needed a strong accumulation of magic power, a high quality of the golden elixir period, a strong will, and a bit of luck. Song Qingyuan's yin and yang could not reach a perfect balance. When he advanced to the lightning tribulation, he could break through the test of his temperament, but it was very likely that his foundation would be unstable and his yin and yang would be out of balance. At other times, it might not be a big deal, but when he advanced to the lightning tribulation, even the slightest deviation would lead to his death, and he would be struck into charcoal by the heavenly lightning. As a cultivator in the golden elixir period, Song Qingyuan was definitely a top-notch existence. Standing at the peak of the golden elixir period, with the strength he displayed, he could actually break through the bottleneck and advance to the yuan period. But because of this concern, he had been stagnating in the golden elixir period, and Dao Yuding was undoubtedly the most effective panacea to solve his problem. No wonder Song Qingyuan treats Dao Yuding as his personal property. Lin Feng shook his head. Mu Jihai's killing intent at this time is very easy to understand, but this person is really brainless. Even if you killed Dao Yuding, let's not talk about whether you would completely cut off Song Qingyuan's path to advancement. Just by killing such a potential young disciple in the sect, who had more potential than you, Mu Jihai, this kind of behavior would definitely make you suffer. Lin Feng now fully believed that Song Qingyuan was very likely to deliberately provoke Mu Jihai to make a move. After all, Mu Jihai was also considered a famous and outstanding disciple in the Heavenly Pool sect. If he did not make any big mistakes, Song Qingyuan would also have to pay the price for killing him. Therefore, now Song Qingyuan deliberately gave him a chance to make a big mistake. Of course, no accident could happen to Dao Yuding, and Song Qingyuan had full confidence in this. However, he did not wait for Mu Jihai to make a move, but Lin Feng waited for the green-clothed Yuanying period cultivator to make a move. A thick green fog suddenly appeared under Xiao Budian's feet, about to cover his whole body. The other party's attack shocked Song Qingyuan, Mu Jihai, and Dao Yuding, the three disciples of the Heavenly Pool sect. Seeing that the green fog surged and the boundaries of space became blurred, the three of them immediately knew that it was actually a Yuanying ancestor who made a move to deal with someone. Xiao Budian slightly frowned and shouted in a low voice. He was about to rush out of the range of the thick fog, but after taking a few steps, he found that there was still a vast expanse of green in front of him. His divine sense penetrated into it, but there was not the slightest response. Xiao Budian urged the bronze void cauldron, wanting to directly break through the space and rush out of the green fog. But he soon found that this green fog was so vast that it blurred the boundaries of space. Xiao Budian was in the thick green fog and felt as if he had been moved to a completely different independent world. He had already left the original boundless world. For a moment, even the bronze void cauldron could not break through the void to escape. The thick green fog did not have the slightest offensive power, and it did not pose any threat to Xiao Budian, but firmly trapped him, making him unable to escape. A Yuanying ancestor personally made a move, completely giving up the intention to attack, and wholeheartedly wanted to restrict Xiao Budian's freedom. Xiao Budian's heart slightly sank. He did not think that the other party left him here to talk about life and ideals with him. Sure enough, a voice suddenly sounded in the thick green fog. People who should have died a few years ago, it's better for you to return to the place where you should go. Don't stay in the human world, blocking the path of the living and obstructing the eyes of the living. The voice sounded from all directions at the same time, and then there were 4 waves of magic power that fiercely attacked Xiao Budian. It's still too early to say who is the living person and who should be the dead person. Xiao Budian was calm and unafraid. He fought 1 against 4 and fought with the other party. Chapter 302. The 4 enemies were all late-stage Gold Core Realm cultivators. Every single one of them had decent strength, and their cultivation methods and divine abilities were all extremely powerful. Moreover, they were proficient in combined attacks. The 4 of them faintly formed a battle formation as they worked together to deal with the little guy. The little guy already used the Wind and Thunder Heavenly Movement martial art divine ability, revealing his demonic body of wind and thunder. Within the Tiger Soul Golden Disc, the peak Golden Elixir period demonic Tiger Soul was also released by him. 1 man and 1 tiger cooperated, not falling behind in the slightest. However, what gave him a headache was that within this green fog, his divine sense could not lock onto his opponents. On the contrary, the 4 opponents seemed to not be affected by the fog at all. Every time the little guy's attack flourished, they would retreat into the fog to temporarily avoid the attack. Then, they would borrow the fog to hide and launch a sneak attack. If the little guy did not have the bronze void cauldron, he would have suffered a bit. Right at this moment, a wave of magic power surged in the air. Although it was not intense, it made the green fog violently vibrate. Although the fog did not disperse, its spatial confinement power instantly weakened by a lot. The little guy's spirit was shaken. This technique, is it Master's heavenly realm barrier? The green fog's spatial confinement power disappeared, so it naturally could not trap the little guy anymore. As the bronze void cauldron shook, the little guy already rushed out of the fog and let out a phoenix cry. "We can't do anything anymore. Let's go." That green-gowned middle-aged cultivator made a prompt decision and gave the order to retreat. If they could trap the little guy inside the green fog, then they could secretly assassinate the little guy. However, the little guy had already escaped. Just by running away, they could not do anything to the little guy for a while. Moreover, this was not a deserted place. The North Wind Sea was not far away, and there were several hundred people participating in the Wasteland Sea Assembly, not to mention Linfong and the other big shots. The green-gowned, middle-aged cultivator's fog, other than sealing space, also had the effect of isolating sound. Now that the information was leaked, they did not dare to continue fighting and immediately retreated. Those 4 golden elixir period cultivators were all wrapped up by his green fog. The group of people were about to break open space and escape into the distance. The little guy snorted, "You want to leave?" He controlled the bronze void cauldron and was about to chase after them. He didn't plan on keeping all 5 of them here by himself, but as long as he could delay them for a while, someone would naturally come to clean up the situation. But right at this moment, a gloomy cold light suddenly lit up beside Xiao Budian. At this moment, all the hairs on Xiao Budian's body stood up, and a serious sense of danger immediately surfaced in his heart. So that's how it is. This is the true killing move. That was an old man wearing gray clothes. His appearance was extremely ordinary, and if he was thrown into a crowd, he would be hard to find. Even though he was currently attacking the little guy with a killing blow, his entire body was still extremely ordinary, without the slightest bit of killing intent or hostility leaking out. This person had such a special quality. Even if he stood in front of you, face to face, and said to you, "I want to kill you," but you will still unknowingly ignore or even ignore his existence. However, this extremely ordinary-looking gray-robed old man, who looked like a drop of water falling into the ocean when he stood in the crowd, was an extremely terrifying assassin. He did not have the slightest bit of fame, and no one in the outside world would ever know that he, as a late-stage golden elixir period cultivator, had once successfully assassinated a Yuanying ancestor. The little guy's mind was extremely quick-witted, and his perception ability far surpassed that of ordinary golden elixir period cultivators. He who grew up in the mountains as a child had an even sharper intuition towards danger. Previously, when that green-robed cultivator wanted to make a move, the little guy already faintly sensed it. When a Yuanying stage cultivator made a move, it could not be completely hidden from the little guy's perception. However, right now, this gray-clothed old man was actually able to sneak up on him without him noticing in the slightest. Only when the other party truly made a move did he realize the danger. This was also because of the little guy's vigilance. If it was an ordinary golden elixir period cultivator, they would not even know how they died. They would be completely oblivious, and their lives would be reaped by the gray-clothed old man in a muddle. The Tao techniques and divine abilities that this person cultivates are simply existences that exist for assassination. At this time, the little guy already completely understood, let alone those 4 golden elixir period cultivators. Even that Yuanying stage cultivator was used as a cover for him. In reality, that green-robed middle-aged man, like Yuanying ancestor, did not know of the gray-clothed old man's existence. However, it was precisely because of this that he used all of his strength to truly and effectively mislead the little guy, fighting for an opportunity for the gray-clothed old man. That gloomy and cold radiance in the gray-clothed old man's hand streaked across the air in a strange curve, as if a snake was crawling. It turned a few angles, but it still effectively avoided the little guy's defense and directly chopped toward the little guy's slender white neck. The bronze void cauldron had already left the little guy's body and was used by him to travel through space. However, it could no longer play a defensive role. Although the wind and thunder ghost god's body was powerful, the little guy did not have the slightest confidence in using his neck as a vital point to receive this attack from the gray-clothed old man. Although that gloomy and cold radiance was dim, the destructive power contained within was enough to make any golden elixir period cultivator tremble. Even if it was a Yuanying stage cultivator, if they were to receive this attack on their vital point, they would also die with a grievance on the spot. However, the little guy's expression was as usual. With a thought, a small round shield suddenly appeared in front of him, just in time to block the gray-clothed old man's attack. This small shield was precisely the gift that Kong Nanhua gave to the little guy. The Eternal River Immemorial Shield was refined by Kong Nanhua during the later stages of the Golden Elixir period. It could withstand an attack from a Yuanying stage ancestor. Right now, it was this small shield that helped the little guy block the gray-clothed old man's assassination. The small shield was directly shattered. The power of this attack from the gray-clothed old man was actually comparable to a Yuanying stage cultivator. The Eternal River Immemorial Shield was shattered, but the old man's attack was also blocked. That gloomy and cold radiance finally revealed its true form. It was actually a thin cicada's wing, and it was less than a foot long. The hilt of the blade was grasped in the hands of the gray-clothed old man. That was an old hand, and its skin was like withered tree bark. However, the way it held the blade was abnormally stable, as if it was an unchanging stubborn rock. Does everyone have a shield like this? The intelligence didn't mention this. The gray-clothed old man sighed, and suddenly put away his blade. His body shrunk backwards, and his entire body seemed to have shrunk infinitely until his figure disappeared. After his attack missed, the gray-clothed old man did not hesitate at all. He did not have any intention of continuing to attack, and immediately retreated. Even if he had to find another opportunity in the future, he would not continue to stay in the same place. If his attack missed, he would retreat thousands of miles away. There was no sloppiness, no fluke mentality, and no unnecessary thoughts of winning. This was the basic quality of a top assassin. However, it was still too late for him to leave now. The void in front of him shook, and Lin Feng's body had already stepped out of the space crack. In one step, he arrived in front of the gray-clothed old man. In his hand was a mass of purple gas, and inside that purple gas was an independent small world. In this small world, 5 figures were struggling nonstop, wanting to escape. It was the green-robed middle-aged man and the 3 Aurus Core late-stage cultivators who left earlier. The 5 assassins from the first wave were all captured by Lin Feng in one fell swoop. Only one escaped the net. That Golden Elixir period cultivator was deliberately let go by Lin Feng. He left a mark on that person's body to see if he could catch a bigger fish. Lin Feng silently looked at the gray-clothed old man in front of him and did not speak. He just spread his 5 fingers and reached out to grab him. Even in the face of Lin Feng, the gray-clothed old man still maintained his calm. He did not say a word, and his figure shrank, becoming smaller than a grain of sand. He flew backwards, trying to avoid Lin Feng's grasp. Lin Feng looked at him and said indifferently, "This escape technique of yours actually doesn't shrink your body, but it's an illusion that targets other people's souls, making them lose track of you in their consciousness, thinking that you've shrunk and disappeared. But to me, this kind of smokescreen is completely meaningless." Lin Feng spread his 5 fingers, and the great capture of the heavens extended from the barrier of the heavens. It directly turned the space where the gray-clothed old man was into a big hand, firmly grasping him in the palm, and he could not move at all. At this time, the pale-faced King Anliang of the Great Qin dynasty, Shi Zhengyue, also stepped out of the void. Closely following him were the other 2 Essence Soul Realm giants of the Great Qin dynasty, Dao Master Changle and Dao Master Gamble. who were participating in the Barren Sea Assembly. However, at this time, the usually cheerful Dao Master Changle could not smile at all, and the calm and easygoing Dao Master Gamble, Zhuge Guang, also had a serious expression. The three Essence Soul Realm Giants' eyes all fell on the small world in Lin Feng's palm, staring at the middle-aged cultivator in a green robe who was imprisoned in it. If looks could kill, this Yuanian cultivator would have been torn apart by the three Essence Soul Realm Bulls 10,000 times. They all recognized that the middle-aged cultivator in a green robe was called Zhao Exine, one of the great Yuanian ancestors of the Great Qin dynasty participating in the assembly. This person was originally a Yuanian cultivator of the Great Qin dynasty. He was usually low-key and did not often take action, nor did he travel around. He was always in seclusion, cultivating or refining elixirs or magic weapons. However, this Zhao Exine was not weak. When the Great Qin dynasty asked him to help, he did not hesitate to complete the task. Sure, Zhong Yue and the other two originally admired such a powerful and low-key subordinate, but they did not expect that it was this person who made such a big mess. At this moment, the three giants of the Great Qin dynasty had a headache because the impact of this incident was too bad. As the host of the assembly, the invited guest was assassinated, and the host's own people were involved in the assassination. No matter how they explained it, the Great Qin dynasty would lose face this time. Dao Master Changle glanced at the expressionless Lin Feng and sighed in his heart. Of all the targets, he had to pick this person's disciple. Now things are even more difficult. After the trip to Xingyun Peak, Lin Feng's reputation as a protective person had been widely spread. Many people knew that the master of Xianmen was extremely protective, even to the point of making a big fuss over a small matter. If anything happened to his disciple, this big boss would not let it go. It was even more likely that he would personally go in a battle to seek justice for his disciple. The only good thing is that nothing really happened to his little disciple. Otherwise, things would not be good today. Just as Dao Master Changle thought of this, he saw Lin Feng turn his head and look at them expressionlessly. Prince Anliang, Dao Master Changle, Dao Master Wan, I need an explanation. Lin Feng's tone was calm, but everyone could tell that this was the last calm before the storm. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.